of November 18th. First thing we're going to do is approve the minutes, which Jessica disseminated to everyone like a week and a half ago. Did everyone get a chance to look at the minutes?
You want to,
from our
who's here, your usual thing? Who's here?
Pardon?
You want to see who's here? You want roll call? Or you want to wait on that?
Let's just do this first, and then I'll go into that. Well, thank you. So these are the minutes from October 14th. Did everyone get a chance to look at them? Any discussion or concerns? Anyone? Okay, so I'll just need a motion to approve the minutes from October 14th.
To make a motion to approve.
David, second?
Second.
Okay, several here, and all in favor?
From the Zoom, can you?
Yes, and let me thank you, Marcus, for the reminder. So we'll just take roll call. David Kriegel, present. David Austin.
Present.
Marcus Kasich.
Here.
Julia Weisenberg's here. Matthew Fox.
Here.
And we have Sean Davey, you're on Zoom.
Here.
And Greg Cranford.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay,
Really a quick interruption. That means they can't vote on things, correct? Because they're on Zoom?
correct. Yeah, but this evening, we don't have
Don't
any.
think about it.
Don't have anything, so. Okay. But we have enough, just to answer your question, we have enough people present to do some of the.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we have an invoice from Wayland Peeler for our attorney fees, which are from October 2025. And those were in the amount of $2,992. When I looked over them, just to clarify for everyone, the bulk was attending our meeting in person from October 14th. And the second percentage of that bill was Crescent Beach LLC and the Fallert subdivision. So that's where most of Rick's work went into. So I'd like to ask for a motion to approve $2,992 for Rick Whalen and his group.
I'll make a motion to,
Thank you, Marcus. A second on that?
second.
Second from Matthew. All in favor then?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Second one was from our engineer. So this is from the Rayner Group for professional services that we received from October 2025. And those were in the amount of $1,600. And looking over that for everyone, again, mainly it was the in-person meeting we had on October 14th. And we had Rick do 2 memos for the Crescent Beach LLC for a steep slope analysis. And he also sent out the letters to the DEC and Suffolk County Health Department Services to ask for our being able to be lead agency. So that was the bulk of Rick's work. So I would just ask for a motion to approve the Rayner Group for $1,600.
Motion.
Matthew, thank you. Any second?
Second.
Okay, Marcus, I looked at you, David, but Marcus said it. So, and all in favor on that one?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda is the Crescent Beach LLC minor subdivision. We have to declare lead agency. Rick, that would be done verbally this evening.
Go
Yeah, and
agree with and put in your minutes and
Yeah.
send out a letter to that effect.
and we did get the notification, as I said, and actually in the billing was from Suffolk County Health Department Services, and the DEC approved us and didn't have any objections, our being lead agency.
Excellent.
So anyone have any discussion on that, or can we go ahead and proceed for the minutes just to declare ourselves
There.
lead agency? So I'll make that motion. Can I have a second on it? David Kriegel, I'm looking right at you this time. All right, so all in favor of that?
Aye.
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 Jessica, you noted that, okay? All right, so I'll need a motion to close the business meeting.
Make a motion to close business
Matt,
meeting.
second? To close the business meeting, okay. All right, thank you. That was David. So we will go into our work session. We have the Radigan lot line adjustment. Again, we are still waiting for Health Department approval. They have until December 9th, so we'll keep in touch with that applicant to see what they'd like to do before the 9th, or if we get it before then. DeFau and Shearer lot line adjustment, it's a similar case to the Radigan. We're just waiting for the Health Department approval, and they have a similar deadline of December 9th, 2025.
Is that our meeting day too?
Actually, what's our meeting date, Jessica? It is December 9th, yeah.
The ninth.
So that'll align with that. Hopefully, we usually get it before then. Yeah. All right, subdivision applications, we have the Bloom minor subdivision. They asked for an extension. They have that until February 11th, and I went over that last meeting, what is the delay there, again, from Suffolk County Health Department Services. West Neck Creek Cottage subdivision, we're just waiting for submission of the final application, and they asked for an extension. We have until April 14th of this next year. Third on our subdivision application is Fowler Trust subdivision. I know Carl Pentecost is here. And we also, we actually went over the CF and the memo from Rick last time. So I think it was really, you wanted to speak tonight on that.
Well, yeah, I know that one of the Carl Benacata, 860 Montauk Highway, Watermill, New York, for the applicant. You know that since our public hearing, and at the public hearing, there was discussion about Lot 5, whether or not there was going to be a conclusion on further subdivision going forward. The board received 2 letters that I'm aware of. One from Trudy Fowler, asking that the board consider allowing for the subdivision, for a future subdivision of that Lot 5, which, as you know, does have sufficient yield to be subdivided into 2 lots, if it is ultimately subdivided as proposed. And then there was a letter from Penny Nuff, who was actually here this evening. The letter from Ms. Nuff essentially deferred to the board on whatever their preference was. They would be supportive. Since those letters were written, the family has had further discussions internally. And the position of the applicant at this point is that given the estate, I don't know if you're familiar with the rule against perpetuities, I'm sure for property 101.
I knew it at one time.
Subject to that rule, the estate and its dictates and mandates go on for essentially 100 years. It's 21 years plus lives in being. And the youngest life is Penny's son, who's 20 years old. So given the great extent that this trust will be governing the workings of this family and the opportunity for this family to grow as unknown right now, the members of the family, after further discussion, are asking the board to consider removing any preclusion on further subdivision of Lot 5 to effectuate potential changes in the estate planning and potential growth of the family. I know that this board had been disposed to include that prohibition, but again, the request of the applicant is at this point, if that could be removed to allow for future subdivision of Lot 5. There is no application pending or current intent to subdivide this into more than 5 lots. Just asking at some point in the future, if the family decides that that's prudent in light of the size of the family, the growth of the family, the evolution of the estate, that they be afforded the opportunity to do so. Of course, that would come with application to this board, consideration by this board, relevant conditions imposed by this board at that time of the subdivision. That's basically the position the family and the applicant are taking. Happy to field any questions or concerns.
Just refresh my memory, what's the size of Lot 5 again?
Let me just refresh my memory.
Okay.
4.4.
Yeah.
It's 187,000 square feet, 4.3 acres. And it would yield at least 2 lots, at most 2 lots.
Any thoughts on, I know Greg Cranford, who's not present, he's on Zoom tonight, was the one who brought it up at the original discussion.
Yes.
Anyone else? So,
You know, I read the memo you sent out and not trained as a,
Memo.
there was a long description of, I think it was the most recent of the letters explaining the family. And this,
Yeah,
and that.
that wasn't me that said that.
That wasn't you.
Yeah, that was,
And I frankly didn't follow it, actually. It's not my area of expertise. Could you just walk us through the organization of it and the structure of, and why now that this is coming up as an issue at the 11th hour?
the estates or the trusts.
Well, to work backward, why is this coming up now that you want to reserve the potential to subdivide Lot 5? Or is it only because it was mentioned as a stipulation at the last meeting?
That's exactly right. That's when it came up and that's when it was discussed. That's when their concerns were raised. I am not the attorney for either trust or estate except with respect to this application. So I can't talk to you about the global intent of the trust or the estates. But I can tell you what my understanding is that this is a family-owned property. There are multiple heirs. And this was the cleanest. I don't know if any of you have owned property with a family member. It's not the easiest thing. I did for a while, and thankfully that ended. This was the cleanest way for each member of the family to be sort of afforded their specific interest in the property. It was through this trust and ultimately by this subdivision. And the concerns raised by the family are that if, as the trust will continue for decades, long past any of us are here, that there be afforded some flexibility in managing that trust, commiserate with the changing and growth of the family. That's what their concern is.
Well, it sounds like the future planning would need to involve more than one additional lot. If you're talking about this infinite expansion of the family,
There is, if we
there's got to
have,
be a lot of fighting over that little lot.
it's infinite expansion of the family. But that is the sole flexibility remaining, and they're just asking to maintain the only flexibility they would have.
There's across the street as well, as I understood this
That's
memo,
Yeah, totally separate and apart from this application.
separate ownership.
Separate ownership from this application.
But
So
within
I
the
have a
family,
question.
I didn't really understand.
I can,
We're getting to the edge of my comfort with the
Yes.
trust, but I'll
But
continue.
I can talk to you.
well, let me just, do you mind if I want to ask our attorney just a question? So the easements that we have already discussed and that we've pretty much agreed to, the front sections, if they were to come back to want to subdivide that last lot, those easements would still hold on that lot, despite that they could perhaps subdivide it again, but those things would hold. Because that would be my only concern.
So the only lot that's subdividable, and right now it's a 5-lot proposed subdivision. The eastern lot, which is eastern southern lot, which is lot 5, is, as Carl said, it's about 4.3 acres. So that is subdividable under current zoning, which is AA. There's a scenic easement along most of the road frontage. That scenic easement is proposed, and that will come into existence. They can still come in at their current driveway. There's a driveway cut at the northeastern end of Lot 5, right, from Nostrand Parkway. They could, the only way they could subdivide Lot 5 in the future would be they'd have to come in there. They could use it's 20 feet wide or maybe 40 feet wide, depending on how we structure this, because there's an adjacent 20-foot strip on Lot 4. They could potentially come in there. They'd have to swing the driveway to the south, to get to any proposed Lot 6, if you will. But it wouldn't preclude them. They'd basically share in a driveway. And the driveway to the more distant lot from the entrance point would have to go over, one of the bigger lot.
That's something these future owners would have.
It could be
I'm just
done.
concerned
It could be
about
done.
I'm concerned about the scenic look to that coming down that last lot. So it's just as long as it holds.
No driveway cuts, no new driveway cuts.
Yeah, the easement would,
Yeah, that's the only question, would, if they would use the common driveway, because that's all they could do, which I think is what he's saying. Because if there was a new cut for a new driveway, you're taking away essentially more of the easement because you got to cut through stuff to cut a new path.
The applicant's understanding is we would not be able to touch the conservation easement. We would not be able to add another driveway that would hold in perpetuity.
Julia, could I ask a question?
Yes, Greg.
It seems to me that if there isn't some sort of method of not allowing subdivision of lot, if we don't place some requirement on that not to be subdivided, that we are de facto approving a 6-lot subdivision. And if we are going to do that, it seems to me that we need to have the subdivision represented as a 6-lot subdivision.
Not,
No,
not.
this is establishing one lot.
That would be a
It
minor
is, but
subdivision later.
just to amplify what Greg is saying, because if I was an architect, well, I am an architect, if I was designing a house on lot 5, I don't think I could do it without understanding where the second house might go and where the subdivision might be in terms of the setbacks and views. And, it would be very difficult because you're not going to want to build a house there without knowing what the disposition of the subdivision, the future subdivisions would look like. So why not just include it now? I mean, you may decide that every lot should be 50 feet narrower so you can fit in the 6th lot ultimately.
Can I just offer that I think the confusion came from just the fact that we received 2 letters from 2 different family members, and just, if you're not privy to all that discussion, it was perceived to be a little bit confusing as to what the intention was, and the one letter mentioned perhaps, could you say, what David's asking, could you say that a 6th lot could be approved? But since there's no application coming before us in that manner, it's a 5-lot subdivision that we're looking at.
Exactly.
I think that based on our previous agreements on the conservation easement and the frontage of the property, that's where I think our concern lies. So Rick just confirmed for us that those things are going to be held despite any future.
Let me make a couple of comments here. So, Greg's point is a good one, but right now, you're looking at a 5-lot subdivision. What I would recommend in the future, if anyone were to come into you with a quote-unquote below-density subdivision, you should clarify at the outset, is this what you mean to do? You're proposing that these are all the lots you're going to get. Okay, you're proposing an oversized lot. We want restrictions. We want you to tell us right now, you agree to restrictions, and that lot can't be subdivided. So we didn't do all that in front. What we did do, what Rainer Group did, and what you accepted, your environmental assessment forms, the AS Part 2 and 3, state that this is a below-density subdivision with only 5 lots, where at least 7 would be allowed by zoning. I'm not suggesting that we necessarily have to amend the EAF. I'm not going to worry about that. You're still technically below the allowed density, 6 versus 7. But, you did proceed on the basis that you were getting a benefit here, bonus, reducing density voluntarily by the applicant by 2 lots. In the future, I think we need to clarify right at the outset, this is what you mean to do, right? Because if you're going to create an oversized lot, we want to make sure that we're getting the benefit of the bargain and that lot won't be subdividable in the future. Right now, though, if they were to go to put in a 6th lot, they'd have to go to a new hearing, in my opinion, because they had a hearing in a 5-lot subdivision. So they're not creating a 6th lot now. But it is true that since lot 5 is greater than zoning allows, unless Shelter Island changes the zoning between now and someday in the future, it would be probably difficult for you to deny the 6th lot if they came in someday, because they'd be proposing 2 conforming lots. You probably don't have grounds to deny it, at least the way the law is right now. So they're getting 5 lots, but they could come back someday to divide lot 5. By the way, the map is going to be a filed subdivision map. They come in someday to subdivide lot 5. They're going to have to abandon lot 5 out of the map. I mean, I know this is not an issue because they're not going to do it anytime soon, but you can't do that within 3 years. You can't abandon any part of a file map within the first 3 years after the map is filed. Again, not really an issue for them, but someday if they were to try to propose to divide lot 5, and we don't know that they will, they'd have to abandon that out, create, the extra lot. So if you want to.
If I have a,
And if I could just say something for the record, there is no intent or desire even for a 6 lot right now. This is just about flexibility going forward. So to amend it for a 6 lot now, that's not what this family wants right now. It's just flexibility if those wants or needs change in the future.
and why was this lot proportionally so much larger than the other lot? I don't remember how much larger it is, but.
Oh, I can touch that.
Okay.
This is Penny Knupp, one of the trustees.
And
Heidi, can you come to the podium? And just state your name for the record again.
Penny Knapp, one of the applicants. So we started this process about 4 years ago, as Jessica may remember, hiring an attorney and working amongst the family members to determine how many lots would be appropriate. We ultimately, because we do own other land, it was decided in the family that all the waterfront property would be split 50-50 between my brother and myself. He currently owns, as part of estate planning, a house down the road at 39 Woodstream Parkway, which is about 3.5 acres. And then part of the estate planning was that my family conceded any interest in the interior woods, which is about 50 acres, and then another lot on Belvedere across the street from that. So these 3 lots is a 10-acre parcel, is the only land that the Knupp family will have on Shelter Island, with my brother has roughly about 50 acres. Part of why lot 5 was a little bit larger is that when my grandparents were still living at 59, our neighbors to the south, Sweet Pea Cove, put in a few structures that were not run through the building department, and they built them right on the property line. And because of that, and because of the topography, you can see that lot 5 has a lot of sinkholes, and it's a beautiful piece of property, but it is not all buildable. And therefore, any contemplation of a house on lot 5 would be very closely aligned to the lot line between lot 4 and lot 5, because that's really the only flat area. There's also a zone, an AE 18 zone that sweeps up, and so that puts some restriction on where you could build as well. So because of that, we made that lot a little bit larger because of the encroachment and because of the topography. And ultimately, I think I mentioned in my letter that I have 2 children. Will and I have 2 children. And the long-term plan is that one lot would go to one child, like a lot 3, and lot 5 would go to the other child, and that in the middle, there would be shared resources, a swimming pool, a tennis court, and with the idea that they would gather there, but ultimately, as Carl mentions, it can be very challenging for families to co-own property together. Goals, objectives, they all change over time. And because of that, I think the best way to keep families functional and enjoying good times together is to make sure they have separate properties to go back to. And that's one of the reasons why, I conceded the 2 other homes on Shelter Island with the idea that I can build my own home, that Will and I can build their own home. So that's why lot 5 is a little bit bigger. It's because of that restriction and the idea that ultimately there would be only one house there. But part of this process, being 4 years into it, it's also about compromise and working with other family members. I'm doing the best to move forward with this process, compromise, and try to meet all objectives and work with family. So I appreciate you listening to me, and I understand that that this is not an easy process, especially when you get a variety of different letters, but I really appreciate your thoughtfulness to the matter, and that, to echo what Carl said, it is a circumstance where this trust will be, the land will be in trust for 100+ years. And while my intention is that only one house would ever be built, and at that, I don't even know if that would happen during my lifetime on Lot 5. But certainly down the road, the family will grow. And again, having some flexibility there is helpful to keep families functional, and getting together and having fun versus arguing over things that really are not.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
So I think that's all I have to say. If you have any questions, I'm sitting right here.
Okay.
Julia, I would just say I think the stipulating that if it moved forward without the restriction, stipulating that it does, regardless, only has one access point, I think that gets you part of the way there. I have to admit that, I was pushing for a greater conservation easement, and certainly the idea that it was only 5 lots and they were giving up the 2 was certainly part of that factor in my head. And so I know I personally then pause now and say, well, gee, now, I feel like I have to think back to the beginning of how do I think about the conservation easement? And,
Yeah, I agree, Sean, completely.
So
Also, it makes me, I can't help but wonder, what does it mean about the 50 acres across the street? Does that become 20 houses over there?
I'm not sure.
That's a separate property.
Yeah.
Right, that lot is not in this application.
I understand. I'm just vocalizing, how I'm one of the things that was talked about originally when this was presented, to Sean's point, was maintaining the character of Nostrum Parkway. And it's, it cumulatively has an impact.
So the only thing is the same conservation easement is going to be across the same 5 lots and even the 6 lots. That's sort of the back and forth agreement that we sort of came to informally, right? You are all remembering the same history I am? Okay. Yeah, okay.
I think the question for us is, if they had come to us originally with a 6 lot instead of a 5 lot subdivision, would the thinking about the depth of the conservation easement been any different? And exactly. I don't know the answer to that, but I think that's the question.
Well, the size of the conservation easement is tied to the size of the parcel.
Yeah.
So whether it's split 5 ways or 6 ways, it'd be the same degree of preservation.
Yeah, right. It doesn't change it. Yeah. We're not discussing a 6 lot. No, it's a 5 lot application.
And they could have come to us with a 7 lot.
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the one that was actually applied. Right. That's what we're.
Which is just a 5 lot. There is no present intent for 6 lots.
No, from your discovery, from the topography and the flood zone, it doesn't sound like it's particularly buildable as another lot in any case. Where there's a will, there's a way. If you spend enough money, you can build anything, but it doesn't sound like anyone's going to rush to build it on a difficult site.
We would go as far as to say a 6 lot is unlikely.
Yeah.
But also, let me just say, it's like, that would have to go through its own process.
100%.
And that's not where we are here.
Right.
we can future into 1,000 different lots, and but that's not.
Okay, so Rick, at the conclusion of this now, where do we need to go to move this forward?
So I don't have the map in front of me, but you, first of all, you got to make a decision that you close the public hearing, closed on October 24th. I would plan to have a resolution ready before your next meeting.
Yeah.
So let's just look at this real quick. So I just want to, any conditions. We don't have any building envelopes on the see. We have a conservation easement that would be granted to the town of Shelter Island. It's along the road frontage on Nostrand Parkway. The other things that come, well, also we did specify a certain structural setback from the boundary of that conservation easement. That's depicted on the map, so that's something of a building envelope, I guess, because that's beyond what would be required by zoning. I guess my only other question would be, are they, so, I don't know if you guys have this would be good if we put the map on the screen or something, but lots 1 and 2 have side-by-side access points going through the conservation easement, and the same thing for lots 4 and 5 over here, except that lot 4, which already has a house, its driveway comes in also through a break in the easement on lot 3. So here's my first question for you. Do you want common driveways, or will each lot take its own separate driveway, or be it in 2 places side by side? Want them to share a single driveway when they come in off Nostrand Parkway? Or will you have 2 driveways next to one another and another 2 driveways next to one another, maybe a 15?
Well, I mean, there was a discussion a few meetings ago about the issue of the driveway crossing scenic easement, but I don't remember the conclusion of that.
There's a gap in the scenic easement for access there, so there's a 20-foot wide openings in the scenic easement.
Per lot.
Per lot. Right now, there's one for each of the 5 lots, and again, kind of the weird thing is that lot 3 has an existing driveway access, although the driveway swings over onto lot 4. The house is on lot 4. So the driveway for lot 4 is coming in on lot 3 right now. That's where it is.
That's existing.
Yeah, and that's existing. Presumably you don't want to move it apart from the disturbance.
Do you have any plans to maybe do a shared on 3 and 4? Because that.
Absolutely. So, with respect to the driveway situation, we envision for lots 3, 4, and 5 that there would be 2 driveways. We have one coming in on lot 3 that would serve lot 3 and lot 4. And the long-term vision would be that that driveway would create a big U and would exit technically on lot 4, because I don't know if this particular map does not show, but I have it on my phone. There are some amazing big rocks that exist on the property, and they make it really quite special. You know, part of the terminal moraine that created Long Island, and those rocks are actually right in the middle of the driveway on the map for lot 5. So they're staying, and we're gonna thread the exit driveway, if you want to call it that, for lot 3 and 4. Really right on that line between lot 4 and 5. And I certainly can pull it up on my very tiny phone, or what we can do is we can just.
Jessica, do you want to put it up, or?
I'm not sure which one you have right in front of you. I have 2 of them.
Then they have 40 feet to play with.
2.
2 of the maps. I'm finishing one up.
Oh, right.
So I don't know which one.
I mean, having shared driveways lessens the cut into the easement. So it's nice that we've got 3 and 4 together. 5 is going to be coming around a circle, exiting
You
past
could do
those.
that in lots 1, 2. You could have a single common driveway in lots 1, 2.
So is that something that you might consider, having a shared driveway on 1 and 2, just as you're going to be doing on 3 and 4?
I'm all for that. Those 2 lots ultimately will go to my brother, and see what he would do.
That might solve the problem.
And just to be clear, when you, on lot 5, when you mentioned a U, that doesn't mean you're coming both in and out, so it's 2 cuts. You're just.
Oh, it's just one cut.
Yeah. No, I speaking for myself, Julia, if we could
Yes.
get a stipulation that said there were only 3 entrances to the whole subdivision, I'd
That's
be,
what I'm thinking, yeah.
I'd be comfortable saying, we don't need, or I don't need, in my view, a restriction on the further subdivision of lot 5.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable compromise.
Sold.
Yeah, so,
Right?
Out here?
yeah, Doug's on the Zoom call, I think.
So, okay, so conditions, conservation, scenic and conservation easement along Nostrand Parkway is shown on the map.
Mhm.
Lots, yeah, setback, little extra setback from that scenic easement on each of the lots, and then lots 1 and 2 and 4 and 5, those will be shared single common driveways, anywhere within the 40 feet.
And the connection to connect the two further in has to be totally out of the easement.
Right,
Right.
there's actually, the map actually, they even have meets and bounds on here. There are meets and bounds for the driveway cuts.
But isn't it actually, you said, Rick, you said 4 and 5, it's 3 and 4, right, that are shared,
3 and 4 they're sharing.
right? I want to make sure I.
It's a little weird, because again,
Well, 3 is existing, that's
well,
what the
the
existing.
driveway is on 3, the house is on 4.
Oh, that's right, okay, no, you're right, no, you're right.
I'll figure it out. If I have any questions, I'll ask Carl. You can talk to Tessa.
Yeah.
But the object is to have no more than 3 driveways
Correct.
Correct.
serving the whole property coming off Nostrand Park.
The whole, yeah.
So
Just because the specialness of the conservation easement kind of gets lost when if we're cutting into
Yeah, you have
it.
5
That's my
driveways,
only
it
thought.
chops it up.
Because our goal was to protect the forest,
So
the natural
it's gonna
forest.
be 3 cuts. There'll be a U starting in lot 3, going to lot 4 and coming back out of lot 4.
No, I don't know, do we need to specify that?
No, but that's the
But
intent,
you can
just so
do
you
that.
see.
The 3 cuts.
Now, 4 and 5 would share from a common driveway. And if down the road, there's a lot 6, that would have to share also from that same common driveway.
Correct. Yeah,
That would be what we put in.
So 3 lots serving with 1 cut.
right.
If it was, yeah, divided.
I'm fine with that.
That's
Everyone
reasonable.
else?
I'm good with that.
I'm good with
Sean?
that.
Greg?
That's, yeah,
Okay, all right. Rick, you got that, or?
Yeah, are there any other, nothing else, right?
No, there was nothing else.
Okay,
All right.
Well,
Okay.
that's great compromise. Thank you, everyone. I think that's great.
That was easy.
Yeah.
I just want to thank the board for its continuing thoughtfulness. Thank you. Thank you.
okay.
Rick, you'll work on it, I think, for next.
For next, you'll have it ready.
Yeah, so I'll have a resolution for the next meeting.
Perfect.
Night. Yeah, thank you. There's gotta be.
Thank you.
Days, I can't wait for this.
See you next month.
All right, next,
What do we got next?
Crescent Beach LLC. So we actually have, wait, we have 2 memos from you, Rick, right? Rick Wisnowski, we have the
2 that are
earlier one, and then you did a nice contour map
under our additional.
showing the steep. So technically 1 memo, 1 extra drawing.
Yeah.
I'll say it that way.
Yeah.
Correct.
Do you want to just take us through that about both the memo and then the little drawing you did of the steep slopes? Which I really appreciated because it definitely put it in perspective. See where the steepness is.
So I made my memo dated November 12th, 2025. Looked at the steep slopes on the property. And according to the DEC, steep slopes would be greater than 15%. So based on this map that I prepared, not really anywhere on lot 1 that the slopes are less than 15% within the building envelope. Majority of them are 35 to 45% within their proposed improvements. And then for lots 2 and 3, the 15% or less are within their proposed building envelope. slopes that they show on their sketch plan. So I would recommend that, on lots 2 and 3, conservation easements over the steep slopes where slopes range from 25 to 45%. Some areas on lot 2 are even greater than 45%. So you don't want to be disrupting any of the soils there, altering drainage patterns, soil slope stabilization. I believe that the applicant came back with a letter saying that they were willing to accept conservation easements on lots 2 and lots 3. On lot 1, their site plan showed some disturbance and revegetation in areas where there was no grading really proposed. So I wasn't really sure, what the goal was there and why that area would need to be revegetated if they weren't proposing to do anything there. So maybe they can limit their disturbance there. That's along like the east side, I guess, of the property as the driveway comes in. Other than that, if you have any questions, I can answer as needed.
In terms of the location of the proposed house, a pool, accessory building, driveway, how does that correlate to the edge of the less than 15% band across the water side of the lot?
So I drew the line that's shaded here along the 100-foot setback. So it kind of extends a little bit past the 100-foot setback from the wetlands.
This is this 100-foot wetlands.
More or less, yeah, it follows that. There might be a little bit of extra. So there's not really any area, within the building envelope that is less than 50% slope.
Have we ever been presented a site section that shows the implication of the cut and fill to mitigate this steep slope? It seems to me from looking at the plans that site 1 is basically clear cut with a complete intervention of cut and fill to mitigate this steep slope. But I don't recall seeing a section.
I don't either, Greg. I was thinking the same thing would be a very useful drawing, particularly if it showed the house and the depth of the cellar that's proposed, assuming there is one.
Let me just make a comment, because this is a kind of intellectually very difficult thing to deal with. The applicant has gotten approvals from the DEC, got approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals, got a Supreme Court decision which the town is appealing on site plan, all to build a house on what is proposed lot 1. The house does not exist. The applicant doesn't have a building permit for it yet. They haven't commenced construction. They don't have vested rights to build what they propose on lot 1. But the applicant is giving you plans to show what they say they would want to build on lot 1. And if they were to go ahead and get their final approval, let's say they win the lawsuit, they could get a building permit and they could build that before they subdivide the property. But they don't have permit. They don't have all the permits. They don't have vested rights because they haven't built anything yet. And they've applied for subdivision even though they don't yet have a full rights to build on proposed lot 1. So you kind of have to figure, we know what they would like to do if they get the subdivision map approved the way it is, but you're not locked into that, okay? This is their proposed subdivision. You have to bear in mind that house that would go on lot 1 and all the work, which is a lot of disturbance, it would appear, does not exist, does not at the moment have the right to exist, has not been built. And so you're supposed to divorce that from the subdivision review and the subdivision design.
But we can't unsee it.
Well, I guess,
Yeah,
but isn't
and that's
some of
where it gets really complicated, because you're right,
But-
you would prove this the way it is, that's what the applicant apparently was built.
Yeah.
The other thing too, I just want to mention one other thing, because, you've just been the lead agency, you're now the lead agency on the application. It's an unlisted application, an unlisted action under secret. So in connection with whatever decision you make going forward, or maybe before you make a decision, you have to make a secret determination. Negative declaration, positive declaration, that's a DIS. With an unlisted action, you have a third option. You can do what's called the conditioned negative declaration. If there were conditions that you thought were essential to the subdivision, that without which you would require a DEIS, you can impose them through the what's called the conditioned negative declaration, which you can only do on unlisted actions. So you should be thinking really initially about the environmental or the secret review of the application and what secret determination you're going to make.
So we have to have that prepared for next meeting.
Right, but you can give guidance to, Rick would do an EAF part 2 and 3, but this is one way they need input from the board.
Well, I just also want to remind the board that the code does give us the right to protect steep slopes. Steep slopes are mentioned in the code. Rick, you had pointed that out to me.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the code doesn't exclude any percentage of steep slopes from either the lot or from the building envelope lot. So there's nothing you can say, oh, you can't build there, that's not allowed by our code. Your code doesn't say that. But the code does give you the power to protect steep slopes. So that's an environmental consideration in subdivision design under chapter 111, chapter 111 of it. So, you have the right to try to protect steep slopes, and you also have that right or arguably that obligation in your secret review.
if I may jump in, Julia, quickly. One, I would note that Mr. Bennett has had his hand up for a while, but I think appropriately waiting because we needed to finish this part of the conversation. I just wasn't sure you saw that.
No, we saw it, a number of us, but we're just waiting.
Yeah, I think one of the questions I have is, I personally clearly have a lot of difficulty with the amount of movement of soil and changes in the landscape there in order to accommodate what is planned to be built. I think the question is, and I think Mr. Bennett tried to get to this or did get to it last time, at this point it's a sketch. So, should we be saying this is only one step in the process? We can approve this sketch while noting we have concerns about all of those things, but that may be for the next stage. I'm not sure where we apply that kind of concern more fully is now too early in that context.
Well, I think that's what Rick is trying to advise us on. At the point that we do the seeker review, we could do a conditional negative declaration. And that's what would happen in the next phase.
Yep.
So.
It seems like secret is our opportunity to potentially do something, because here all we're doing is just the
Yeah,
lines.
but I do feel like, unless I hear differently from everyone else, that the concern is the steep slope. And we do have to be cautious with that. I think that's the bigger issue with the lots. And it's not really so much 2 and 3, because it seems like they would be building those things closer to the road at some point, perhaps, but it's the lower lot, I think, that you saw in the map that Rick Wisnowski prepared for us. So we could go ahead tonight and say sketch is okay, but on those conditions that we're going to be looking at them during seeker. Isn't that correct, Rick?
Yes.
Rick Whalen, I mean.
By the sketch plan, you're at the sketch plan stage too.
Yeah.
So you're really in just sort of, it's like a preliminary subdivision application.
Right.
Yep.
John Bennett, I see, now you've had your hand up, so I'd like to give you an opportunity to say something there. Go ahead.
Someone's got to let me in.
Yeah.
We can hear you. We could a second ago.
We can't
You
see
can
it.
take your picture down. There you go.
There you go.
You're muted, John.
How about now?
Yeah,
There
now
you
you're
go.
good, both
Oh, great.
accounts.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. No, it's a very helpful discussion. Just a couple of thoughts. Well, before I get to my somewhat broader thoughts, I do want to make sure that everyone got my letter. I think Rick's memo was, there's nothing I found objectionable in Rick's memo. I did let you know the ZBA had indeed expired, but there was no sense going back to the zoning board of appeals because the Supreme Court directed that the house that you see on Lot 1 should be built, but the town has appealed that. That was argued back in April, and it may surprise some people, probably not Rick Whalen, but the appellate division, second department, being the busiest appellate courthouse in the United States of America, which they're sort of proud to say, hasn't rendered a decision yet. So there's no sense for me going back to the ZBA.
Yep.
At this point, we did send a letter of continued coverage pursuant to general permit. We may require a tidal wetlands permit from the DEC. We have one for the house, but interestingly enough, there's an argument which the DEC has adopted in the past, but it depends upon the staff member you're talking to. Since I'm not changing any lot line within the DEC jurisdiction, within the 300 feet from the tidal wetlands, they may very well issue a letter of non-jurisdiction as it relates to the subdivision, or if they require a tidal wetlands permit, we'll get that. Which either way, we're clearly within their density limitations. Of course, we have to go to the health department, which we'll do. If a site plan review for the improvements on Lot 1 is required, obviously we're going to have to comply with all the site plan approvals. Remember, and I don't want to do this, and I think it's a good idea to talk about these things, but I could, if the lawsuit is, if the town's direction to issue this building permit, all permits necessary, is upheld, I could simply withdraw this subdivision application, obviate all the things you're talking about, build the house, and then come back in. I don't want to do that because I think we're here. Let's talk about these things. But remember, it's not like if we prevail on the lawsuit, we're powerless to do that. But having said that, I respect what you folks are doing, and I'd like to engage. We were very aware of this fact that this lot has some slope issues, and we acted as if the town code has the topographic limitations which some other codes contain. We've offered, we don't show the conservation easements on the lots 2 and 3, but certainly there's no problem whatsoever in putting them there. The lots 2 and lots 3 are, as Rick noted in his memo, and I think it's just common sense, that's where the building belongs. They're not steep slopes, and that's where they belong. But certainly to make sure that that is where the building on lots 2 and 3 are relegated, we don't have any problem whatsoever with putting conservation easements on the balance of 2 and 3. And indeed, we would be more than happy to work with you with protective easements on lot 1 to make sure that somebody doesn't just come in and bulldoze the whole thing. That's not to the applicant's that's not to the applicant's benefit to just do some sort of clear cutting there. He owns the house he controls
But that's what the site plan show currently.
excuse me?
But that's what the site plan currently shows.
Yeah, because that's what the court directed the town to issue the permits for. So what I'm saying to you now, and please listen to me, okay? I could withdraw the application if the lawsuit is upheld, if the Supreme Court's direction to the town is upheld. I could withdraw the application and build this house. What I'm saying is I'm respectful of what you're trying to do, and I'd like to engage with you on this, okay? Again, so we talked about the slopes. We'll provide a meets and bounds description for the utility easements, everything that Rick asked for. When we went to the zoning board of appeal, I'm sorry, when the town, what we offered with the ZBA and the town is if you let us build this large house on lot number 1, we'll limit the size of the houses on 2 and 3 to 6,000 square feet. Rick mentioned that in his memo. It comes from the zoning board of appeals decision, which again, is sitting there waiting for a reapplication because of the litigation. But if that was to happen, I don't think the client has any problem with limiting, houses on lots 2 and 3 to that square footage, regardless. That's a big house, so I think we can work with that. But I do want to tell you that one of the things I put in my letter and one of my prior letters is, as Terry Rice, the primary commentator to the New York State Village Law, which controls subdivisions, stated, sketch plan is an informal approval. I, in 30 some odd years of doing this, maybe just a couple years longer than Rick, have never seen seeker done on a sketch plan. It's something that you do when you have the more information that would come to you on an application. If you would like us to prepare a long form, that might help you. More than happy to do that. But I think the best thing to do right now, in terms of the way these things naturally flow, remembering that you always have the final say in terms of what you're going to condition this on and what we're going to work out in terms of the final approval. This is where these lots are going to go. It's an appropriate time, as your engineer noted, that the board to consider sketch plan approval. Then we would get into the real nitty gritty in terms of what restrictions are going to be placed on these lots, and talk about that. I feel confident that we can give you more than enough restrictions and more than enough information so that you can issue a negative declaration or a conditional negative declaration. I think if you look at, yes, Rick said something about a positive declaration, but having spent an awful lot of time litigating seeker issues, as has Rick, if you look at the seeker regulations, what's a typical type? Oh, and before I forget, this is not in the, hold on a second. It's not in the, it's a term of art that's used in the Shelter Island Code. It's the high structural area or whatever.
Hazard area, structural high hazard area?
Excuse me?
Structural high hazard area?
It is not. It is not in the structural. The proposed activity is not in the structural high hazard area. So, but in any event, a type 1 action, if you look at the seeker regulations, you know what a type 1 action is? A type 1 action is 50 homes, 50 homes that are not connected.
John, under the Shelter Island Code, a mere 5 lots is a type 1 action. Any major subdivision.
No, well, this is not a major subdivision.
I realize it's not major.
It's a 3-lot subdivision.
That's why we're listed.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that. But what I'm saying is you have an app. You're hearing what I'm saying. I'm willing to work with you on some of the concerns that you have on lot 1. I'm willing to work with you on that, even with the understanding that if the lawsuit is affirmed, I could simply withdraw this application, build the house, and come back in. But again, I'm willing to work with you in terms of some of these issues on lot number 1 and ultimately say, okay, we'll make that subject to site plan approval, but we'll try to work out some of those things as conditions even before you get there.
I think that's where we're leading. On sketch plan, shouldn't there be some talk about the water hookup? Because I had mentioned that at the last meeting.
Well, we did show the easement. We did
Sketch
show the
plan,
easement. Rick wanted
Or
to
is
meet
that
some
gonna,
bounds.
or is that a concern I can bring up at the next level?
so
Yes, that's more of a full
You can
application.
look- Because that is, you do have to have hookup, you do have to be able to, and this is part of the heights, I believe, so,
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah, it is.
and I don't know if there's.
Have you
another
looked
way
at that
to
yet?
get- I don't know if there's another way to get the water down there or how.
There's
they would
water
do
in
it.
front of the lot, Rick. There's water in front of the lot. The question with the Heights Association, they may want it supplemented, but there's water at the lot. And the Heights
You mean
Association.
on Serpentine Drive, John, on Serpentine Drive?
Yeah,
It's not, it doesn't go to Shore Road though, it's only on Serpentine?
yeah, it's up on Serpentine.
It had the pipe going down from there.
And you would jet that pipe? I mean, how would you get the water down? You're not gonna trench, I hope, right? Down the slope?
Well, it depends. If it's the disturbance by trenching, it can be minimal, which is possible. You probably just do it that way. That's a long way to, jet.
Rick, I do see Stella from the Heights
But let me
Association
finish,
here.
please. Let me finish, please.
Okay.
Those are the sort of things that we would look at on the actual formal application. We're going to have to come to terms somehow with that. The Heights Association wants I guess they want more capacity on the road. We're going to have to deal with it. But these are the sort of things that we would deal out on the application. But please understand what I'm offering here. I'm listening to your concerns. I'm trying to say to you, even though, and Rick says we don't have vested rights, but we do have a determination that is the law of the case right now, that states that these permits should have been issued. Having said all of that, I'm hearing the board's concerns on some of these issues and more than willing to work with you.
So let me just say this. I'm gonna go back. I did see John did reference Terry Rice, who's a well-known commentator on, zoning matters, in his earlier letter. I have to go back and just reread that, John. But I believe that John's correct, that in sketch plan, it's kind of an informal process, and what you would be looking at in sketch plan is the basic design of the map. Where do the lots go? Where does the access go? When if you believe that you can do that, and that's up to you, whether you're comfortable with the design, you want to change things, whatever. Once you get past sketch plan, and then the applicant submits a formal subdivision application, then at that point, you can get into other things such as building envelopes, conservation easements, tools that you might want to employ to limit the disturbance of steep slopes. I think John and I are in agreement that you don't have to do that at the sketch plan stage. So I guess what I'm also saying is, I guess the sketch plan, you probably don't have to make a secret determination at this time.
I didn't think that we were. I mean, we were discussing secret in terms of next steps and preserving the steep slope. But Stella, did you want to offer something about the water hookup?
Good evening. So I'm Stella Labutis, and I'm representing the Shelter Island Heights Property Owners Board. And we also own and operate the Shelter Island Heights Water District. And I am by no means an expert in subdivisions. This is actually the first time I've come before you on a subdivision. So take that with a grain of salt. But I do have a concern about how can we be, even this is a sketch plan review, and even though it's conceptual, we have sent you some material about the fact that right now we have 6-inch water main that dead ends right on the property. And when the initial home was being proposed, our outside engineers, H2M, did a model of the water demand and came back to us and said, we will not be able to meet, based on what we have today, the water demand for the proposed house. So I know the proposed house is maybe on or off the table, depending on what happens with the lawsuit. But assuming there is a house that is built anywhere close to that size with the demand that's required, and now you're piling on 2 more potential homes up to 6,000 square feet each, the question is, how can you even conceptually approve this when, yes, I hear that there have been Department of Health approvals and ZBA, despite the fact that it's expired, there's been ZBA approvals, but the Department of Health has never issued any kind of approval on the water, and they won't do that until we as the water district give them a water availability letter. So if you tell me that this is absolutely going to be discussed in a lot of detail, but it hasn't been discussed since. And I know at the last meeting in October, which I wasn't able to attend, Mr. Bennett mentioned that we have been in discussions. There have been 0 discussions.
I didn't say that.
You did, and it was about 46 minutes into the presentation or into the meeting. So I don't want to quibble. I just want to say we feel like we don't have a place at the table. And I think it's important that we determine what needs to have happened, how it gets designed, and who pays for it. And if you're telling me it doesn't happen now, that's fine. But we really do need to start having this conversation because all the applications point to public water, and I can't tell you that I can provide it. And I can't tell you that I can provide it without a diminishing service that I'm giving to those that are already up there. So that's all I wanted to convey.
Okay, that's
All
all
right,
right.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
If I may, there is a Suffolk County Department of Health Services permit for the house, number 1. Number 2, we will have to meet with the Heights Association, and particularly in their capacity as the purveyors of water there. And if there and meet their concerns, as long as their concerns are reasonable and within the strictures of a public service provider. I understand that there's an issue that they have, and we're going to have to come to terms with that. When I said discussions, I know there have been discussions with InterScience. It's been so long since this was approved. Maybe some people's the notes on the discussions disappeared or something like that. But we don't think that for 1 second, since you are in effect the public water supplier, that we don't have to come to terms with you. I've been doing subdivision work for 36 years. I understand that. Usually it's the Suffolk County Department, it's Suffolk County Water Authority. You know, we have to deal with that. I'm not suggesting for 1 second that we don't.
Perfect, thank you.
Great.
Okay, we're getting somewhere. So, shall we prepare this then for
Yes.
next meeting? Rick, you can work on the resolution for sketch approval.
I don't know, you need an actual resolution on that.
Sure you do, Rick. You got a resolution, you got to sign the map.
Yeah.
Sign the map on a sketch plan?
Yes, sign the map on a sketch plan.
I'll look,
Come on, Rick. It's been a while, I guess, since you've been on the other side of this. Yeah, you sign them, you have a resolution of approval, and you sign the map for a sketch plan.
It's the Shelter Island Code that governs. I have to look and see how sketch plan is handled under Shelter Island Code chapter 1.
Okay, but at a minimum, Rick, you need a resolution and a reference to a map.
Well, what map are we approving?
The sketch plan that we've presented to you, prepared by Rich Warren's company, InterScience. It's the 3-lot sketch plan. It's the one, Rick knows what it is.
What date do you have on that, John? July 24th? And showing proposed improvements in there that are not part of the approval.
we put the improvements there because you asked us to do it. If you want us to take it off, we can do that very easily. It's just a click of a, you know, I'm not for 1 second suggesting that you would be approving those improvements. That's what our discussion has been about as part of the subdivision approval. I think Rick has a copy of the map without the improvements. We were asked to put those improvements on.
So that was part of our memo. We asked them
That's
to do a
right,
few extra
yeah.
things, and then, because the map was inadequate, you have it, you have the old one, Jessica? Jessica has the previous file.
So I haven't done a sketch plan, Rubio, but apparently you did one on Fowler Trust back in December last year. We did do it by resolution.
Yeah, we did.
CJ.
Well, some of the board members wanted to see where that approved, or anyway, judicially approved house sat on the lot. And we gave you a lot of stuff to look at as part of that exercise. We gave you, we gave you all of the approvals that have been required, a construction methodology, Ed Hollander's. We gave you all that stuff as a tool for you to examine this, and it raised some of the questions that you're talking about now, which means I think it was a good exercise. But we can just take those improvements off. They're not meant to. They're only there. They're ghosted in on lot 1. They're only there because of the board's request. I think it was back in April. We
I
gave
have one April 8th.
Yeah, there's an April 16th. We gave you a construction methodology prepared by Bulgin, a stormwater prevention plan, the health department approval, the DEC approval, the ZBA approval. We gave you all that stuff at your request, but it was a letter of April 16th, 2025, directed to the chairwoman with the enclosures. But it's very easy just to take. I'll just tell InterScience to take that off.
Or, John, it looks like it may be that the April plan that doesn't show the ghosted information might be the same, physically the same. So
It would be, Rick.
I agree. It's not a big deal. I can either approve the earlier plan, or I can make it clear that the ghosted information is not part of our approval. Anyway, there was a sketch plan for, again, I haven't done one yet, but there was one for Fowler Trust. And I'm just glancing at it. It would be the kind of format I would probably want to use, here. It looks okay.
Okay, for next meeting.
And the date, I'm so sorry. What would the date for that be? I'll just.
Well, the earlier one was 4/11/2020.
Oh, I'm sorry. The date of your next meeting. I'm sorry.
December 9th.
September 9th. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm sorry I'm not there in person. I don't like this Zoom stuff. It feels strange. I much like being there in person, but I had some countervailing responsibilities. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Rick. Okay. Let me just think. We have a lot still to get through.
Subdivision.
Yeah.
Waiting.
Okay, road minor subdivision, we're still waiting, and the white performance bond, I'm just not even gonna, still at town board level. All right, so that ends our discussions on subdivision. Moving on to our wetlands permit. Actually, I was just gonna say, Rick, we can probably let you go at this point. And actually, no, I still need you, Rick, for site plan review, so please stay. I'm just dismissing Rick Wisnowski. All right, so Bootsy.
Which I printed out and left in the printer. It's the thing I emailed you.
I have
And Mark,
yours,
I think.
here, hold on.
Okay.
I have yours right here.
That's the second one.
This is, well, no, this is the one with your comments on it.
Right, but I did comments and then I revised them and sent them again.
I only have that in email format, I believe. I have Marcus's first draft. Yeah, I'm sorry, I only have one copy for myself.
Let's see if I can find it.
Wait, can you pull it up on your phone, maybe?
For some reason, my sent email doesn't sort chronologically, and I can't figure out why.
Okay, Marcus, how about you start, while he's looking for that, can you start us off on your draft? Because you gentlemen did a site visit. I went on my own.
I went on my own as well.
Okay, so we all, we all went at different times.
I figure it's an undeveloped thing, so it's pretty easy to just. follow
Yeah.
it.
Well, it was once developed.
Yeah.
It was torn down. It's like about a 3-acre lot. It looks over Crescent Beach, but they need freshwater wetlands relief from a man-made pond. Everything they're proposing, none of it is in the vegetative buffer. There's 100 square foot in the adjacent regulated area. And that's what they need the wetlands for. This property has a history, not from the current owner, but from previous owners of building oversized houses or proposing oversized houses. Mr. Herman back in the early 1970s went ahead and built this house with no permits or anything. And that was bought by Vela, who proposed a monstrosity of a house. It looked like a Las Vegas hotel. That was turned down by the town. Then it sat there for a while and was recently sold with the new owners proposing a house that's 5,900 square feet. It's only, it's 100 square foot in the era, nothing in the NB. What's interesting is if the 100 square foot was in the vegetative buffer,
Yeah.
they wouldn't need a wetland permit at all.
It looks pretty easy to remove it.
I thought it was like isn't it like 4 feet? 3 feet?
It's,
Well, it's at an angle. It's a
It's
kind
an
of
angle.
triangle that encroaches.
it basically, it
It's so
seemed
close.
like
'Cause I have
with just a
mine here.
little bit of work, they could get out of it
Yeah.
adjacent. And that was the only, it's like, it's a lot of.
So that was my question.
Well,
Why aren't we
right.
just trimming off the little bit there? So-
I mean,
But do we believe that they're asking for the use of the 100-foot exemption or going to go to the town board and ask
they don't
for
need
that?
it.
So Rob Herman,
100 square foot exemption.
It's not, they don't need 100 square feet because it's in the adjacent, it's not in the vegetative buffer.
But you're right.
Ah, got you.
Adjacent is okay, you can build there. We prefer people not to, but it
Yep.
is not. It is
well, my
the-
only thought was like what you said, since it's so tiny, this would be really easily resolved, just a little adjustment
It would
there.
be nice to understand from the applicant why it's not viable, or whether there are options that show that.
Rob, do you have any explanation as to why that isn't over the 100, just so slightly over the 100 square foot there?
Yeah, how are you? I do, and it's interesting. We had this actually identical conversation with the CAC, who I eventually won over. So I'm hoping to do the same with you all. The idea here is obviously it's a large lot. It's basically constrained by a freshwater pond that has a long history of manipulation. It is a freshwater body that even under the DEC's revamped jurisdictional regulations that were passed on January 1st of this year, they got a second bite at the apple and reiterated that they have elected not to regulate it. But we have really proceeded as if that was not the case. We've proceeded really with the utmost conservative approach in terms of proposing all of the new construction outside the 100-foot setback. And just to clarify, it's not just the pool spillway that requires the wetlands permit. The physical structure itself is not included in the notice of disapproval because the physical house structure itself, because it's outside the 100-foot wetland setback. But you couldn't construct the house here without some sort of construction disturbance and regrading, et cetera, immediately inside that adjacent regulated area. So the idea here is, it's funny, just the one comment with a little bit of work. I mean, it's hard to articulate the amount of design work that went into this to sort of reap a reasonable return from a property of this size, particularly in light of the fact that it really is a fraction of what the prior town board had approved in the way of a wetlands permit previously, for what one of the members just described as the monstrosity that was proposed by Vela, which I had some involvement with. It's a little bit different at the time, but the code is not really changed. So you can't have new construction within 75 feet. This new construction is permitted within 75 to 100 feet if it's justifiable. So what we've done here with the design is really worked very hard to keep everything outside of that 100-foot wetland setback, except for the fact that after trying to twist and turn and reorient and shrink the pool, this is an 864 square foot pool, 97 feet from the wetlands, whereas the town board previously approved almost a 1,500 square foot pool, 76 feet from the wetlands. And a patio in the prior application, was almost 6,000 square feet of raised patio, 75 feet from the wetland. And here, we've got 1,600 square feet that's 100 feet away. So the idea was that we would take the no more than 100 square foot of spillway at a 97-foot setback, effectively using the one-time exemption. Because whether it's in the vegetated buffer or not in the vegetated buffer, if you have an existing house with no wetlands permitting history, you can go to the building department and propose 100 square feet of new construction, whether that's a gazebo 60 feet from wetlands or it's a 100 square foot deck addition that's 95 feet from wetlands. If you're limiting it to 100 square feet, the building department will issue a permit for that construction. And so that was sort of the question that the CAC asked, and which they were sort of, I think, enamored with, the idea that if we go through this wetlands permitting process at this point, and the applicant's essentially spending their 100 square foot exemption as part of this permit, then there would not be, say, in the future, some other 100 square feet of new construction that gets plopped down, maybe 20 feet from the wetland or something like that. So in a way, the applicant is giving away a little something, but also offering sort of something to the town to say that if we can squeeze this 100 square feet of spillway here at a 97-foot setback, with all other construction more than 100 feet away, we're basically spending our 100 square foot exemption. And I think the CAC committee members like the idea of that because, whether this pool is 97 feet or 100 feet away from this wetland boundary, there's no material difference in impact to the site. With all the mitigation in terms of the septic for the home, the drainage, the proposed vegetative buffers adjacent to this to the freshwater pond, there's a lot of really substantial mitigation that's incorporated into this design. And so the ask for the spillway, I think, it's more than a reasonable exchange, given what the code allows, given the mitigation proposed, given what was, had been approved here previously. So that was kind of our pitch. And that's my best way to answer your question of why we chose to make that part of the design. And one of the things I always try to remind, the town board and the committees reviewing these wetland applications in the town, if everything were just proposed outside 100 feet, none of you would have any input or ability to regulate these types of things. And so, maybe you'd build, a house this size and a patio and a pool and everything 10 feet farther back, and then there would be nothing to incentivize the homeowner to, propose, 10, 15,000 square feet of vegetation adjacent to the wetlands, and the town would have no ability to impose that. So there is a little bit of a give and take in sort of the management element of this, where both the applicant and the town, you know, there's a certain level of engagement where I think the net result of the property comes out in a lot better shape, because there's just substantial mitigation proposed sort of in connection with this little bit of project that peeks into the wetlands jurisdictional area. And it seems like a really strong trade-off in favor of the protection of the pond.
Rob, I have a question. I mean, unless it's just missing for some reason in mine, I didn't see the vegetative plan. It's referred to.
Yeah, so you're hitting on another
Not just
comment.
me, right? Okay.
Yeah, no, it's not you. You're hitting on another comment. And what I've been doing with some of these, you know, in addition to the town board, you've now got, you know, your subcommittee, which we've had for years, the CAC, now there's the town's environmental consultant, Teresa Mason. So when we propose a vegetative buffer like this, that, you know, you can see Vicky Cardero's designed this. I think she may be on here. 10,360 square foot, 2,735 square foot, et cetera, et cetera. That's 25 feet in depth. We don't want to actually go through the process of detailing out that whole plan if there are recommendations to perhaps change that. And for example, there already is one, I believe, in Teresa Mason's comments, where she was suggesting that the buffer be even wider. And I don't know where the town board, you know, who's obviously ultimately the permit issuing authority here, is going to land on that. But what we try to do in these situations is offer what we think is a substantial and reasonable buffer. Eventually, the town board will hopefully either accept that, or they might be moved to ask us to do something different. And so we kind of hold back on the investment in the detailed design until we know really what the final approved buffer is going to be, understanding that a condition of any town board approval would be that we would have to provide, you know, a detailed plantings plan. So I know Vicky's office is at the ready to provide that detailed plan, but it just doesn't make sense to draw out and invest that entire plan if we don't know if what's on this plan is actually what's going to be approved. So that's an easy thing to plug in at the end. But
I've just never heard of that being done before, where
After the wetlands permit?
yeah, where we just
Well, it's not
you
after-
can't
it's not
see what you're
after.
doing. And so,
No, I mean, it's not after the wetlands permit is approved. It would be a condition of the permit approval. Now, of course, if you were to ask us to say, well, we want to see what the details of that proposed vegetated buffer are, we can provide that. You know, Vicky's office can provide that. The problem is just from a practical, you know, perspective for the applicant, is if she goes through the whole process of providing that, and then the town board says, well, that's not good enough. You know, we want a bigger plan, then we have to provide, you know, we have to go back and provide a bigger plan. But I don't know if maybe Vicky wants to speak to that, because again, you know, she's going to provide an appropriate plan. And if you want to see that sooner than the town board hearing, there's no reason I don't think we couldn't provide that. Do you want to give Vicky a chance to respond to that?
well, let me ask the board, do you want to just put in the memo a concept of what you'd like to see, and then we can just forward that on to the town board and then let them figure out what they're going to accept from the applicant? I mean,
I guess since we're advisory, it doesn't really matter, but it's like, this is very strange because we've always seen a vegetative plan as part of the application. So it seems a little.
it's hard for me to visualize anything and say, well, let's do this. I don't know.
If I can just get an opportunity to respond to that, I don't disagree with that observation. I think the difference now is that basically with a third advisory report that comes from Teresa, and Teresa's reports more often than not suggest a different buffer than what we've proposed. We're, at least my firm, I'm behaving a little bit differently, because I used to be more sure that if we provided, say, the buffer that's in front of you and gave you a detailed plan, in my experience, the planning board more often than not would find it acceptable, or maybe have some comments about some particular, vegetation or whatever. But when we have a professional person who prepares these kind of plans in the town all the time, I'm not really worried about it being sufficient. But again, I don't want to belabor this. I don't think at this point I've heard the town board, this hearing was supposed to be on November 10th. It was going to get bumped to December 22nd because the board didn't have a quorum. And now I'm understanding, because there's been a change in the makeup of the town board, that we're going to be bumped to January 12th. So if you'd like to see a draft plan from Vicky, I don't know if she can promise that to you before December 9th, but we can get that to you. In other words, I don't want the lack of this plan to become a problem.
Rob, that might be helpful, because on the site visit from all of us who went there, we went at different times, but I think the concern was just the steepness and making sure mitigation, that was in your memo specifically,
Right.
make sure, stringent mitigation.
Because the runoff,
it's running right down.
you're getting
Yeah.
the wetlands permit because of the fresh water, but it also runs off into the salt water.
Right.
On Shore Road.
So this buffer is actually pretty important on this particular application.
Oh, very
Yeah.
much so. Very much so.
I'd certainly favor asking for, a detailed plan so that we can look, because I think it is because of the slope. The substance of what is being suggested, size of things, and is going to make a difference versus something that's some grasses and that that kind of thing versus right. So the detail does matter, and it's a little. And I would just by no means trying to be rude. It's probably not worth having Victoria speak to it verbally, because that doesn't really do us any good. We need it in front of us, and then at the time, I think that might be worthwhile.
Yeah,
Sean,
I agree.
I don't disagree. I think my only question was, I just wanted to ask Vicky, if you're there, would you be able to provide a plan to the board before their meeting on the 9th?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. So we'll get that to you.
Maybe she can work
on the
with,
9th.
if she makes some,
Well, she's going to design it for
Right.
Mason. Greg, did you want to say something, or did?
No, I'm
Sorry,
okay.
I thought somebody motioned.
Yeah,
Somebody
I'll have
else.
some questions for.
Okay, yes.
Ready? Hello, Rob and Vicky. A couple of questions, some from looking at the drawing, some from looking at the site. The survey, starting with that, I don't think is accurate. It's a 2016 survey. And that large area where I assume it's the old foundation footprint that's sunken substantially, isn't reflected on that survey. At least as I'm reading the survey. Maybe you can look at it again and look at the site photos, but if you go to Google Earth or go in person, you see there's a big depression on the site. I don't know if the fill wasn't compacted. I suspect that's the case. It wasn't done in lifts. But since the house is touching the AVB, I feel like we have to look at the house. And the elevation to the house are based on what I don't really believe is the average natural grade, which is what existed for demolition. So it's going to be a little hard to calculate. But I have issues with their base plane calculation. That ultimately affects the size of the house, which wouldn't be our responsibility, except it's now touching the wetland setback. So it caught my attention. In any case, the survey doesn't show any of the existing trees, and there are a considerable number of trees in the wetlands that are of substantial, 12-inch caliber or larger. And given what I think is going to be a tremendous amount of site disturbance, I mean, you talk about 1,500 cubic yards of fill, about half of which comes from the site. That's a lot, it's like 140 dump trucks. So clearly the site's going to be topographically rearranged, which could have an impact on the critical root zone of all these trees. So I think you have to show them on the survey for us to assess this. And not in the setback, there's two really nice Japanese maples right on the street, which look like won't survive the proposed driveway. So it might be worth taking a look at those just because they're nice trees. The
wall.
Yeah, I think when I went back, the drawing was a little confusing because the elevation notes of the pool were off in a side note and not a spot elevation. So I see the pool is actually at the lower elevation. I mean, that gets into the whole question of the square foot calculation of the house, because they're not counting the basement, even though there's a 40-foot long length of French doors. I mean, that's for the building department to resolve, not for us. In terms of drainage, I'm also a little concerned because this is a very steep site, not only the site, but going up slope across the street, across Rocky Point Road. And there's a pretty large area that drains across this site. And I was there a couple of days after the rain, and there's an area by that existing garage where the road is a little muddy. Which I assume is coming down the slope. So how this intervention of the site is going to handle this huge amount of rainfall or huge amount of water flow that sheets down across it, I think is a site drainage issue that's not really maybe been accounted for and probably should be.
There have been some applications where they've actually calculated for like a 4-inch rainfall that we've had, where the engineer came back and did it that way. It might behoove them to do a little bit of higher calculation.
But that usually is the calculation of the site area, not what's across the street, and that acres of actually from the Fowler, that whole subdivision, or that whole, not subdivision, but the whole undeveloped piece slopes down across this site. And I think it needs to be looked at because, your application says you're not going to affect the flow of water on the site. And I don't see how that's possible. You're building a house that's 100-something feet long. I mean, in terms of the encroachment by the little projection by the pool, this is a very large house. And it's unclear to me why the front to back dimension couldn't be reduced. I mean, their living room is literally the size of a middle school basketball court. And because we do middle school, so I mean, I think it's 18 inches or so, especially if you rotated the house a few degrees. It seems like a pretty easy lift to just get out of the wetlands buffer and avoid this issue.
Agreed.
I mean, I can try to respond to what I can from that off the cuff. I can't speak to the accuracy of survey. The survey was the topographical map was prepared after the demolition by New York State licensed land surveyor. The average natural grade for the house was calculated by the surveyor at Reed Caron's request. I do want to be careful about the discussion about the house because I want it to be clear. The house is not in the wetlands jurisdiction. The house is not touching the wetlands jurisdiction. The house is not a subject of the wetlands permit, and it is not listed on the notice of disapproval. There were questions about the square footage and the finished, and all that came up a little bit with the CAC too. The architect and Reed have been going back and forth on issues relating to the house. I don't know that anyone could vet an architectural design any more diligently than Reed has. But again, regardless and respectfully, there really should be no commentary about the size of the house, the design of the house, or anything like that, because the house is not, in fact, a subject of the application. The only part of the proposed construction that is within the wetlands regulated area is that 100 square feet of pool spillway. And, you know, you mentioned the size of the house. I mean, it's also almost a 3.5 acre lot. And, you know, the lot coverage here is, you know, just absolutely minimal. And the wetlands code allows for construction within the adjacent regulated area. I think there has been a growing tendency in the town, and I understand if the town changes the code, they change the code. But the wetlands code does not prohibit construction within the 75 and 100-foot setback.
Oh, but it
And-
requires approval of the board, town board.
Yes,
And
well-
that you have looked at practical alternatives. And so I think we would disagree with your premise. I mean, you can say, so what, it's not just what are the practical alternatives you looked at for the pool, right? It is all part of one big structure that you look at. So,
Yep.
you know, we could argue then make the pool smaller. That's very practical. But then, you know, but in turn, you could make the porch a little smaller, or then make the living room a little smaller so it pulls it all back. So your argument's a little bit, you know, trying to weave, you know, it is all part and parcel of what is a practical alternative for the entirety of what you're doing,
Of
right?
course it is. Of course it is. And and you know that because it's a balance between the applicant's ability to use the property and the town's ability to regulate it. So, you know, they could make everything smaller and just move everything out of the 100 feet and eliminate all the mitigation and have just, you know, continue to have mowed lawn right up to the edge of the wetland. But there's a little bit of the project that peaks, you know, into the wetland jurisdictional area and creates all of this opportunity for review and mitigation and looking at, you know, the site drainage and all these other things, because it's not just an as of right building permit. So all I'm trying to do is just to remind you that I actually 100% agree with what you're saying. This is all integrated, but it's all integrated because we need a wetlands permit. If the project is designed to not need a wetlands permit, then there would be no incentive nor any requirement for a lot of this very significant mitigation to be included with the project. So I just think that that's something that, you know, you have to keep in mind. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yep.
And
That's fair.
again, as we talked about with again, not to repeat myself, but with the CAC is, I mean, it sounds stupid. You could build this whole house and the patio and the pool as, you know, or you know, leave the pool out and have everything be behind a 100-foot setback and then go in for a building permit at another day and say, well, we're going to add the pool and we're only going to put 100 square feet in the wetlands regulated area. And then the building department would just say, that's fine. Here's your building permit. There's your 100 square foot exemption. So what we're trying to do, which we thought would sort of be a welcomed idea, is that we would sort of bake that 100 square foot exemption into this permit, which then creates, you know, sort of an assurance that there isn't going to be some other 100 square foot construction located even closer to the wetland at some other point in time. And it just seemed that since the code allows a permit exemption altogether for 100 square feet, that it did not seem unreasonable to include 100 square foot encroachment in this plan.
But Rob, the
It
code
wasn't so
doesn't.
much an argument that we couldn't do something else. It's just that this seemed to be sort of it seemed like a good idea, actually.
But the code doesn't guarantee that you will receive that permit. If that was the case, there'd be no point in having any stipulation at all, and we just make it a 75-foot buffer. I mean,
No, I understand that, but that's why I'm saying we didn't just sort of willy-nilly plow part of the construction into the regulated area. We
yeah, and
specifically limited it to the 100 square feet that matches
these
the exemption in the
concerns-
code.
Right. These concerns that we have, we can certainly put this in our memo.
right.
I don't see why not. I think we should definitely put it in.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
question for you about two things. One was noted by David Austin on the site visit, that there are irrigation wells noted on the map, and
This is near shore.
yeah, we don't,
I
I
think
wonder.
that's on the health department plan and that is. a
Drake site
mistake.
plan.
On the Drake
Are
side.
they
That's on the
this
site plan.
It's on the Drake site plan.
Yeah, I just wondered.
That's the, right, so Mike Drake's site plan, I believe that, because this came up with the CAC also, I believe that is a relic of a prior plan. It's not current and it's not accurate. And that's why it's not on the site plan that has been submitted with the wetlands application. And one of the revisions we plan to make to the site plan is a note indicating that there are no irrigation wells proposed.
Okay, great.
That's
That's
going to be
perfect.
on this plan.
And
And
the
I'm
other thing
sorry,
was
and I'm
the-
sorry about that.
That's all right. And the other question was the well, I guess that has to do with the distance from the septic, but the well, David, you noted that, that's right in the buffer.
In the budgeted buffer.
We're way deep in there with the well.
That's correct. And remember, a well doesn't actually need a wetlands permit under the
Yeah.
town code.
Oh, I know.
So that is the positioning of the well for health department reasons.
On the base.
All right, I think.
Like
we
wells
have
are
enough.
allowed within the wetlands regulating
I
area.
couldn't remember.
Ed, one thing that was sort of a question, I reviewed the architectural drawings, which don't show the pool. And not to harp on the elevation thing, but it's stuck with me. So the base elevation calculation is based on the corners of the house. Because there's no, I don't think, signed and sealed document that shows the swimming pool. So I'm not sure that the building inspector would be calculating the elevations, because really, since that swimming pool and masonry patio are connected to the house, that's an extension of the structure, and the low point of that spillway should be one of the points used in your averaging of the elevation. And I don't believe they are.
So my two-pronged response to that is, well, I guess I'll leave it at one, is we were the average natural grade calculation was based specifically on the instruction from Reed Karen to be provided at the four corners of the house where you see them.
That's because his drawings, if he was reviewing the architectural drawings, didn't show the pool or the patio.
Reed is fully aware that there's a pool and patio there. They have always been proposed on the site plan. I mean, I don't want to speak for Reed. You can go ask him, or I can go ask him, but my understanding is that we were asked for those four corners. We provided those four corners. And again, that the house is not a subject of this application.
I think we have enough to do our memo.
Yeah.
Okay with everybody?
Sure.
We're
Yeah,
gonna
agreed.
move on.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
But just to be clear, they're coming back with a vegetative plan and then.
Yeah, do you want us to do that?
And then after that
Yeah.
meeting, we would do the memo,
But we
correct?
have, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that they did not have the
Well-
meeting as scheduled, and they're bumping it back to January.
Yeah.
So we don't have the haste that we normally
Yep.
would.
Yep.
Yeah, and I would just say, because there may be a few other comments that you all have raised this evening. I can't promise we can address or fix every one of them to your satisfaction, but if we can address and respond to any of them to your satisfaction through a revised site plan, then I'd take the opportunity to do that. Might give you less to write.
And your argument is clear, in case the case you're trying to make, I think we understand. It's whether, it works for us or not.
Yeah, I get it. Thanks, Sean.
All right, thanks, Rob.
Thanks,
All right,
Rob.
all. Thank you. I appreciate you hearing me out.
Sure.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, next one, Carpe. Carpe again, I know we had Carpe once before. Okay, so for Carpe, some of you were not on board when we did Carpe, but Marcus and Matt and I and David, were you? You were
I was on the
you were-
board,
you were
but I
on that.
wasn't involved intimately.
Right.
But I was involved.
Okay.
Adjacent.
Just to review quickly, so Teresa Mason basically noticed that the vegetative plan was not followed exactly. That was in her memo, and she asked that since they didn't follow the vegetative plan per se, that they come back with an updated one showing all the scientific names and all the plantings. And she did note that one of the types of plants were planted a little bit too close together. Obviously, we're not going to suggest to tear this all out, but I guess her memo does make sense, and I agree with it. We might just want to consider, though, the part where she said that they were planted too close together. It might not be a bad idea to maybe thin those out. It's not that destructive. I don't know, but we'll see that's what she asked them to do. The driveway, they went ahead with a gravel driveway, which was not exactly according to plan, but the lesser of the two evils, Mason said. So, and she just noted the irrigation cisterns that were actually in that application. They mentioned that they were not going to use them, but
And then they
it's
use
like they either have to get them permitted or they got to stop using them.
Yeah.
So that's what we have. I'm speaking for myself. I'm generally in agreement with what I just read. Anyone else have any? There really wasn't much else to say. I mean, it was pretty self-explanatory from Mason's memo. Sean, did you, or Greg,
I just noticed that she was very prescriptive, Teresa Mason, about giving container size and density of plantings and all that, which I don't believe they did. They just gave the names of what was there. And I can't speak to that, but if she thinks, that's important for her to understand whether they work as alternatives, then they should comply. I think that's for her to opine on.
Yeah.
Julia, as I recall, she had made a couple of recommendations that were countered. I'm thinking in particular, she had recommended using inkberry plants, and there was a question about not using those since the deer eat them. And to do I can't remember what the recommendation was as the alternative. My impression of going to the site was, while it wasn't completely compliant, it didn't seem to me like an egregious misstep of landscaping.
I think that's why she's just asking for, for the resubmission of the plan. And I shouldn't even call it a plan. It's done. Just what they put in is what she's
You're
doing.
supposed to understand it to make sure if there's any issues. It makes sense.
And the irrigation cistern,
Yeah, that's a problem.
I guess there's 2 points I'd make. If basically Teresa's okay for the most part with plantings, I think we're okay. Clearly they need to get a permit for the cistern. Personally, I don't think the town is very good on this, but I'd like to see in our memo that we say, if the planter, the people who planted it knew that they were not, conforming to what the requirement was, they should get like a letter or hey guys, this is unacceptable. And who put in the cistern without a permit? And we should be kind of at least asking that it's not our job to follow up, but those are followed up of, who are who's behaving badly, and is it being addressed, or we just keep moving on when this happens?
Yeah, I can tell you the cistern came up in Carpe when we first had Carpe. It was there. It was pre-existing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was. You weren't on the board yet, but it was there. Yeah, it was there with the property from the very beginning.
It wasn't supposed to be used.
Yeah. All right, we good on that? I'll start a memo. I'm actually, I should mention, I would start a memo on Bootsy, and then we'll just kind of add in when we get the plan, the vegetative plan. All right, next one is Coleman Rozovsky, which is 31B Dickerson Road. We got that right before our last meeting, so we weren't able to even go. So I just need to assign 3 of you to who would like to go to.
Happy to go.
All right, David Kriegel and somebody,
I'm happy to go too.
Marcus, okay, Marcus and Sean.
They've been before us earlier, so.
Good, sounds good, thank you.
This package.
Yeah. Okay, Julia Brennan's still here. Site plan review, are you falling asleep? No. Okay, site plan review for Sylvester Manor.
Do I have to go sit over there?
Huh?
I have to go sit over.
Yeah, so the
Yeah,
three
me
of you
too.
are, three of you are recusing, so Greg, well, you're on Zoom, Greg's on Zoom as it is.
Will participate?
Matt, myself, Marcus, and Sean, who's on Zoom.
Sean's on Zoom, so you can't.
They're recusing because they spoke at a public hearing in favor of Sylvester Manor, so it was advisable that,
Just to,
yeah, just to
not about this even, but
just to preserve the integrity of the board.
100%.
Yeah.
Do we need to leave the room or just the?
Sit down.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Do you want to leave? No. Okay. Okay. So I went to go see the site and I got a tour from Julia Brennan, who's here. I sent you all my pictures. They're printed here in case, you know.
Yep.
But everyone got a chance to look at them. So we were asked to look at a number of things, parking, well, you have the list, okay, so parking, lighting, noise, ADA compliance. Did everyone take some notes, or would you like to start, or who would like to begin on this?
I think I know it was just mentioned, we're not voting, so I can put in my 2 cents, I assume. Yeah. So there was a couple of things. To me, I felt like we can't adequately do our job without more information. It seems to me that I think Sylvester Manor was going back and kind of getting permission to do a lot of things they had been doing historically without formal approval. A lot of those activities take place outside the manor, outside the house and on the grounds. And so when you're talking about, is there proper, screening and the like, how do I know? Because it doesn't say anywhere in any of the information of where the events are held. And it doesn't, as far as I see anywhere, where does it say where there's overflow parking and for different events and the like? So the only thing that it seems we can opine on is the manor house itself, but that is only a small amount of what the larger, I think covered by the site plan now, going through this kind of laundry list of things that they've been permitted to do.
Well, when I went to the site visit, I was shown where the overflow parking is, and we did go over the fact that because it's parking on actual grass, that it's on them if they want to have any destruction or damage to their grass. It's on them, but there's an extensive parking area there. They're also going to be where the public restrooms are. There's going to be some ADA parking in that spot as well as up by the manor house. They're putting in a lot of ADA compliant parking. But yeah, I mean the concerts in terms of noise would be done right on the lawn there of the manor house. It has been the subject of debate about noise previously.
I mean, that's not necessarily why I'm, bringing it up. I know that the idea of like sound traveling across the creek, and that's come up before.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's still an ongoing complaint or if they've kind of found an even ground, about the way they do things and times of cutoffs and volume and stuff. But because so much of it is outdoor and it doesn't say where it is, I don't know how I give an opinion on a number of these things without some direction there. And if I'm the only one that feels that way, then, so be it. But I'm a little lost in that context of.
Well, it's also because I think when when you put the application in, it was unsure, but there was pieces missing, which we just got today. We were just, I sent it out to the entire board, but we got that kind of late. So I'd say most of the board members, maybe except me, we just got it like a little bit before the meeting, so they didn't get a chance to look at it really.
So real quick, Julia Brennan.
Yes.
Manager. When we submitted our site plan review application, it was for the Manor House rehabilitation project that we had submitted a building permit for, that we had gotten our rejection, we had to go before the zoning board and all that. And it was only after the zoning board acted that the town board informed us, or the building inspector informed us, that indeed what we were gonna have site plan review for was for the change in use, not just the Manor House rehabilitation. And Sean, I have some of the same questions that you have, which is why I'm here tonight, just to try to get a sense of what is the kind of information you need from us. Because we're happy to provide it to you. It's just what form should it take? So I provided an example of some things today that Julia and I had talked about, just our sort of schematic ideas for circulation, a project that's underway simultaneously to open up the front entry so that 2 cars can pass, that's being professionally designed. But when it comes to parking on grass, I can provide you with screenshots that show you that we have sufficient square footage to park 64 cars here and 25 cars there. And here's the system that we use. We hire a company to do the parking for us and direct people in. So it's not just everybody, parking wherever they like. But I'm sort of looking for a little bit of direction back and forth with you to see what are the sorts of things that we need to expect to have.
Well, I guess to have diagram showing, if I hadn't gone to the site with you, I wouldn't have, it's very hard to see unless you're there where it is, so I guess to have more diagrams showing where that overflow parking is for the concerts.
Yeah, for me, I think it would be, I don't think it's that hard, but I think it's kind of just us doing our due diligence, is that on those same kind of maps, you say, here's where we hold our concerts, here's where we hold little, boxes. These are the locations. And these are the locations that we use for parking and overflow. Then if I go and walk your property, I'll have a sense of so I can vision there's an event here. What do I need to, is there anything I need to consider about? And I think for the most part, probably you're all good, you're going to wind up being fine. There's not going to be, many issues, but I can't do that due diligence myself without kind of that sense. And I don't think it's fair to say, well, just come. And I'm not criticizing you. I don't think it's an idea of, well, let's just walk the property and I'll tell you, because I think it should be a public record at this point.
And absolutely, we're happy to do that. The ZBA asked us to say what are our current uses. And we provided a list of what the current uses are, the events and things like that we have. Some of those are, just for an example, we have a summer youth program. The summer youth program doesn't have fixed locations other than for the drop off and the pickup, and we can identify for you where those locations would be, general sort of diagrams of how that program works. But when these kids go off on the property and they're doing, various things, maybe one group's walking over to the farm, we don't have pathways that they walk on. They're walking.
To me, that's overkill. I think we're talking about the events where there's a lot of concentrated people in specific places and that have the potential to disturb other parties. The kind of roaming around the property and doing different things, for me, is somewhat irrelevant. The only other thing that comes up, and it's not are all of the, I note there is a cemetery noted. Are there other historical areas within the confines that are formalized as, kind of historical places that, you don't use, you don't go, or what have you? Or is it really just that one is the only recognized cemetery or excavation sites, or, are there any things that are?
That's a great question. We have 2 burial grounds. We have the Quaker Cemetery, which is a fenced-in area that has a number of gravestones. Doesn't necessarily correspond to the actual number of graves that are in there, but it is surrounded by a fence and it's defined clearly. And then we have the Afro-Indigenous burial ground that formerly was surrounded by a fence. It still is marked in the corners with the fence, and we've done extensive archaeology there. We know that the former fence boundaries actually do contain the buried remains of people, and that there are no others outside that boundary. These are not no-go zones, for sure. People are welcome in all of these areas. We have a number of structures and buildings that are contributing resources. Some of them, due to safety, are not open to the public. The windmill interior isn't open to the public, but people can visit the windmill. Sometimes we host events there and things like that. So I can give you, as an addendum, a list of all of the structures on the site. There's not that many of them. I think there's about 12 or 13. And any associated events or occurrences that regularly go on there, for sure, if that would be helpful to you.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I think it'd be a good record just to show whatever cemeteries or digs that you've fenced in, as part of just on the plan, showing. I don't think that'd be too hard, but
We don't have any fenced off archaeological digs at all. The only fenced off area that we have is the farm, the produce yard of the farm itself around the windmill field. And those fences are to keep deer out. They're generally to keep the public out, except for when we open them to allow people to come in and do pick-up activities and things like that. But there's no, other than agricultural buildings and certain structures that are unsafe. We have a privy that's locked because you'd fall through the floor if you stepped inside of it, that kind of thing. But really, we don't have a whole lot of fenced off areas.
yeah,
Right now,
I meant whatever you were referring to, besides the one formal cemetery that I see on there. I think you referenced two other things. Those were the things that I was referring to.
And I think that would come into play when you're looking at the diagram that you included. If you hadn't been there and known, a person might read this and wonder, okay, you've got this change of traffic going right around the African burial ground, but obviously you're not going to be doing anything to these roads, right? You're just
roads are existing.
right, but when you look at this, if you didn't know, it's just like, okay, that's there, but it could be helpful to just mark off the areas where you're not going to be disturbing, you're not going to have any like construction or digging, or like the road, for example, the historic driveway coming up to these trees, where you're going to be digging up right over here, you're going to be digging up that whole road to put in the water canals to be able to put the sprinklers into the house. Like, obviously, that's not a burial ground there, but it's just helpful, I think, what Sean is saying, to know where these things are, so that where the areas you are disturbing, they don't correspond to these preserved, very important sites. The other thing I was thinking about was, this came up with the library renovation, because they talked about also some parking on the grass, and it was brought up that people who are physically challenged, who maybe don't need ADA parking, walking in wet grass or having a vehicle on grass with, footwear and so forth, people of different abilities, that could be concerning, like that somebody could, fall, someone using a cane, somebody getting out of a vehicle, a bunch of vehicles on grass. I don't know if you remember that came up with the library. So I don't know if that's something that you want to
Is there a
consider.
resolution that was recommended for that situation, or was it just something, because I'd be happy to follow?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Do you remember?
said
I think we ended up not.
I don't think we made a judgment. I don't think we made it into a big thing. It was just a concern that some people had.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just something to think about.
Yeah. We also do have opportunities, because we do have harder surfaces. They're not paved, it's not asphalt. But the roads that these grassy areas lead to, where we also have parking just off of that dirt driveway that could be designated if somebody felt like they were not comfortable walking across a grass field. They could ask for parking closer to events.
But I was just thinking with the ADA compliant parking that you showed me in the front there, so that would be like, that's over here sort of, and this ramp's gonna go through, I think, right? The ramp's gonna go,
If you look at,
The ramp's going this way,
the best way
right?
to look at it is on the actual plan packet. I don't know if you have access to that. It should be on the, if it isn't already been distributed by the town, you will be getting access to it as soon as the site plan review begins. But it's full of technical drawings relating to the ADA compliant parking.
yeah, no, it sounded, I mean, I was just there.
With you, but there are things embedded in that very thick document that I'm happy to pull out for you and put together. Here's our organized ADA
I
parking.
think that might be good, because I'm just, since I was just
Whatever
there,
makes it easier for you.
and I'm a visual person, I'm looking at this, makes more sense to me, because I was just there. But I was thinking that you have that ramp that you're gonna be putting in, but the concerts are right on the lawn there, so are you like, what would you do if somebody wanted to attend a concert and they're physically challenged? Like, how far is that ramp gonna go out?
So we have been
That's all I was
operating concerts at Sylvester Manor for many years. And the protocol has been if somebody is, for whatever reason, unable or uncomfortable walking a great distance, we do have a road that goes down to the area that we're currently using for the concerts. And that individual could be dropped off by someone who has driven them there. If they are the driver of the car, we can find a place for them to park in that area. It's the area that our catering trucks, the service trucks that provide, like Suffolk County comes in with its trailer with a stage behind it. And so it's a very sturdy road. It's not sort of underused road. So we do have the capacity for people to be brought closer to.
Yeah, that's all I was thinking about. Okay.
Yep, and that's something I can share with you what those areas are.
I think that would be useful, right?
Yeah.
Sean, Greg, I think that we should have that.
Yeah, I would just have another question.
Yeah.
Julia, I'm sorry. Does the nature of the ZBA approval and eventually coming through the planning board, does that obviate your need to go to the town for permits for the individual events? Because I think that's what you used to do, right? So do you have to not do that now?
My understanding is that if you have an event at which you are going to be having amplified sound, the town does or a number of cars coming through an entrance off of the main road, they want to know about it to see if there's any reason why they might need to be involved. We've gone many times and been told you don't need a permit for this particular event after they've found out the particulars of it. But we will follow all of the rules about obtaining permits for aspects of events that are going to have any impact on the public. We do lots of very small events that have no impact at all.
My only thought process in that regard was, if historically you've had events that you now won't need to go get a permit for, and it sounds like maybe that's not the case.
I don't think that's.
Were there stipulations where the town said, yes, you're permitted, but do this, that, and whatever thing, but now that's not stipulated anywhere unless you have to go for a town permit. But if you're going to have to go for a town permit, so there's still that last level of oversight, it's irrelevant. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I would also say that we, unlike other locations in the community, or unlike people's private homes, other than our one big farm to table fundraiser, we don't do events that require lighting. So most of our events are over by 7:30 at night, 8 o'clock at night. The last one's walking out in the summertime, because we don't have the capacity. We don't have outdoor lighting. We don't have the capacity to light the place effectively. We do it one time for our dinner party, but that's it. That's a one-off fundraiser.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is there anything else that, besides definitely better depictions of where these things are going to be, because it's just very hard to visualize unless you're there.
No, I have to do exactly,
This was really good, because I know the ZBA was concerned, it was a concern of mine, that front entrance. So this was very helpful.
Yes.
Which I knew about, but I'm glad we got the plans today for.
Good, and that's just the first view. There'll be lots of plans coming through related to that as the project progresses through the design phases. Okay. All right, let me know if there's anything you need. I attached my cards. If anybody wants to come and do a site visit as well, please feel free.
It's very helpful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
David and David. Going back here, we're coming back for site plan review. We're almost
Vacation's
there.
over.
Vacations. All right. You almost got to go home, you wrecked, but. Okay, so that's all right here.
Okay, they have the older one.
Yeah, I know. Let me give you this. This was slightly revised.
Well, no, you're not allowed to slightly revise after I wrote all over your other
There
one.
wasn't gonna be much revision on this one.
I am complaining. Thank you. Lawyers know that.
Did you highlight the change?
Well, they were supposed to be in color, but my office.
You printed it in black and white.
It is black and white. So, but the grayscale of the changes and the dark gray specifically, and unfortunately Greg and Sean,
Oh, they can't see it.
with the change. Not a lot, but there are some.
Pull it up for you.
So it's the dark gray that is
Okay.
really materially different. Okay, so a couple things about this. There's a proposed rewrite of chapter 109, site plan review, obviously. In doing this, I relied primarily, obviously I looked at your existing code, but I relied primarily on a July 2028 draft. I don't know who wrote this, I don't need to know. But it was distributed, so I relied on this. And I relied on Article 6 of the East Hampton Town zoning code, with which I'm very familiar. Article 6 of the East Hampton Town zoning code is site plan review.
I'm also assuming you took into account our comments at the meeting, right? And
Yeah,
okay,
right.
and the shared drive?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
So, so this is what I've come up with. What I need is, and I don't know when this is going to the town board, because obviously they got to discuss it. There are some things I'm going to go over with you, what it says, the object here, and I'm looking for some input, by the way, where I'm going to get a pen out here. Because I do need some input on a few things, and you may not be able to give input on one of it today, because, you may have to think about some things. So I'm not saying we're going to finish tonight, so let me.
Can I interject a quick question? Sure, sorry. Do you want feedback as we go section by section, or how would you like the feedback?
When we get to it, to the extent you can provide feedback, give it to me, but there are certain things that you might say, well, yeah, I think I have to think about that, and that's.
I thought about most of it, so I'm ready to go.
All right. Starting from the top, section 109.1, you'll notice there's a grayscale there. I had the word article, I changed it to chapter. It's not, this is chapter of the code, not. The way it's organized, so go down to 109-3. Now, first of all, the July draft was basically, you need site plan review for everything in the whole town, except for these things.
Right.
I don't like that organization. I don't like that structure. I didn't do it that way. So what I broke it down to is things that you require site plan review in residential districts, things that you require site plan review in commercial districts, and then as you'll see, there's a catch-all, subparagraph C, subsection C. So in residential district, what do you need site plan review for? Any use that would require a special permit. There are a number of things in your zoning code that require special permits. You were just talking about one right now, right? Stuff at
Sylvester Manor.
Sylvester Manor.
But Sylvester Manor isn't a residential zoning district, is it? Is Sylvester Manor a residential?
That's residential.
Yes, they're residential.
It is.
Okay. I didn't realize that. Okay.
So things that require a special permit in a residential, any zone, but certainly a residential zone.
Just as a comment as you go through, it might be useful to, instead of just saying residential zoning, because we have so few zoning districts, to say A, double A, and C.
Nope, because you change codes to change in the future, you might add some other zoning district. So they don't go back and change this.
It's too hard to come back and change
If
it.
you go to the zoning code, if you go to the zoning
Usually
chapter, residential zoning districts, they enumerate what they are.
I mean, what's confusing in the way the zoning's written and the districts is that there are commercial uses in residential zones and vice versa.
I've covered that.
Yeah.
That's dealt with you. So A2, now, and then there's a grayscale under that. This is one thing I need feedback from, because I don't know exactly what Shelter Island wants in some of these things. I've been here about it. So do you want, so right now in a residential zoning district, some clearing or grading might require site plan. Now, the draft that was done in July, they said something involving substantial timbering activities, which is clearing of land, because you don't really have commercial timbering on Shelter Island.
Yeah.
But they don't specify what that means. So I don't need an answer right now. I don't expect one right now. The town board would probably have to weigh on this. But do you want site plan review for clearing or grading? Again, that's not associated with something else. If it's affiliated with some other activity, like building a new building that's subject to site plan, of course, clearing's involved. But if somebody wanted to just go in and clear 2 acres of land, do you want site plan review with that?
No.
Well, I think the question is, would it be a percentage or a set number of over certain square footage?
That's right, it could be either. It could be a percentage of the lot area, or it could be above a certain, flat.
We never previously required site plan for clearing, correct?
Sorry, Ed?
We previously, we did not require a site plan for
I don't
this.
think so right now, but the.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing this again.
Well, no.
You're right, we didn't.
I'm saying, I'd like to really clearly understand where we're expanding or whether we're contracting. And this is an expansion.
This would be expansion.
The July draft was not actually a real,
No, I know, but
implemented.
somebody gave input to this, didn't.
I think everyone gave input, but I don't know.
I'm not sure which July draft that is, if that's the one came from the.
July 28, 2025.
Again, I don't know where you got that from to know whether that's the one that came from.
We sent it to you.
The small.
Okay, so but
I don't know if came from the group that met, that was the cross-functional, had some board members in it, I was in it. I don't know if that's from that,
I would assume so.
but I don't remember.
But then we were all distributed that and we made
But anyway,
comments.
that sort of worked.
They got
The
you.
question is,
Yeah.
does the town want site plan review for a certain amount of clearing that's not associated with some other activity? So that's
If I could just jump in for a little background, just because, so I personally, with Tim Purcell, who is very active within the town on conservation, have been working with the town and trying to advance a tree code so that we can prevent clearing and unnecessary there's 2 stages. One is just lot clearing in full. Another is people just couldn't, not keep caring about the nature of their surroundings and would be happy to just, reduce to 2 trees on their property kind of thing. That's not likely to progress. It's, slow crawling. So I was very excited when I saw that this could at least be a toehold into starting to address some of that, even with potentially maybe a more prescriptive policy in the future. My comments, and then I'll stop, is that as written, it's insufficient because there's no definition of clearing, there's no definition of large tree, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm in favor of trying to dig in a little bit and try to do something without getting too far in the weeds, but you can't apply it unless you have further clarity on what those things are, i.e., what if you don't define clearing, somebody will cut down everything except 1 tree and say, I didn't clear. So
I think if I could just make a comment, I think Sean's point is very good. Personally, can you hear me?
yes,
Yeah, we're listening.
Yeah, okay. Personally, I think that even though, as David Austin points out, this could potentially, it is an increase of oversight. I think it's one that's sorely needed, at least to be broached. And I'll give you an example that just comes to mind. There's a site on the corner of Burns Road and St. Mary's that was, I don't know how big it is, maybe 1.5 acres, that a few years ago was basically clear cut, filled. It's been surrounded now by a privet hedge, but I mean, it's taken an unused but highly treed piece of property and basically turned it into something that's extremely unsightly and for a period of time we know not what. I just think that is something that should be addressed. And the thing that I think is difficult for the town to grasp, this is not 1938. It's moving into the 21st century, and the pressures of development are different and will be much more intensive as we move into the next 20 to 30 year period of time. I'm just making up a number. And we have to have mechanisms to protect the town from irresponsible development.
So
that's all I have to say on the matter.
So I'm not expecting a definitive answer to this. That's why it says at the end of this thing number 2, do you really want this? And if you do, what will the parameters be? So that's A2.
So we should give you ultimately a tree size and I think actually it should be square footed, not percentage, because if someone owns 50 acres and you say you can clear 50% of it, that's right, that's not something you want.
So that's one perspective when we say we want to, or there's another perspective, which is we shouldn't, right? So I have a question at the very beginning of that line 2, because you had it highlighted before, but it's not highlighted in your updated draft, where you said any clearing or grading of a lot of land sufficient size to require a building permit under the provisions of this chapter. I didn't quite know what you meant by under the provisions of the chapter.
Important, actually. I don't know why it's not highlighted.
It was.
It's a low.
Oh, it's so, yeah.
I can't apologize.
Yeah, it's okay. I have a color printer. I got it.
But that's a good point, because actually it's something I highlighted for that reason.
Yeah, because I don't know what that
If we were
means.
to regulate this, it's a good idea, in my opinion, to things that would be regulated, to tie them to building permits. Otherwise, there's no initiating, approval or permit. So for example, if you were to say clearing of more than 2 acres of land, just throwing that out there, is going to be regulated, well, you need a building permit for it. And to get the building permit, you need site plan.
It just needs to be more clear speak. To David's point, I think it's kind of lawyerly sounding. I was reviewing some of the East Hampton code, and they just have some very clear spoken sentences of, what the goal is and what you have to do. I think it could benefit from some of that, Rick.
Mm-hmm.
Just in general.
I think that, to me, I think what you're saying is right. That basically, it's kind of backwards. Like it just means if it requires a building permit, then and it's clearing and grading, then we under, and your dots are basically how do we define that clearing and grading size aspect.
Yep.
But if it's tied to a building permit, does it even matter how big? Because if it's always tied, so.
But you don't want it really tied to a building permit.
Well, this is the point.
We're going a little bit too much into the weeds in this.
Yeah, I mean,
I got another 11 to 12 pages. Let me just say, this section, do you want to regulate clearing through site plan review? And if so, what will the parameters be? That's the relevant part of that.
My whole point in bringing up
one.
the site at Burns and St. Mary's was precisely for that reason. Nothing's going on there, and there's nothing to prevent them from going in and clear cutting the site and leaving something that looks terrible.
Looks terrible. It's not.
I think the plan was to build a house, and then they changed ownership.
Wait, just one second, Sean, Marcus, can I say it again?
I think the plan there was to build a house, and when you build a house, you got to clear the land and see what you got. You got to see. And I think the ownership changed there.
Well, it's now used for equipment storage.
Yeah, well,
Marcus, that is not the way that you see what you've got, with all due respect.
You have to do a building permit.
I'm not trying to understand the building. Are you saying, Rick, it needs a building permit? Are you saying if you want to clear a certain amount of area,
You should get a building permit.
you need a building permit?
Because otherwise,
Whether you're proposing a structure or not.
Point, there's no.
It's forcing it through a system.
Yeah.
I think that's the idea, Alessi.
So let me just keep going here.
Okay.
Come on, let's stay here.
Remainder of the residential zoning districts, garage, lawn, and porch sales over 3 days. That came out of the July draft. 4, I don't think this is covered in your code right now. With respect to a non-conforming commercial use, I know you have commercial uses in residential zones.
Yes.
You want to regulate them if they do something. Might they do something requiring a building permit, which is usually an enlargement? No, we could be more clear about that. If they need a building permit for an interior renovation, you probably don't want site plan approval for that, all right? But just start with where we are right now. If it needs a building permit, a special permit, or a variance for something new occurring at an existing non-conforming use, you should have some regulation of that.
That's what we usually get.
So number 5, now, again, the draft, I worked off the July draft I was looking at, they treated this in different ways, but if you're doing, this was on the agricultural, they exempted, remember they did it backwards there in the draft, they said everything needs a site plan approval except, and their exception was for temporary agricultural structure. The corollary of that would be that apparently it's a permanent agricultural structure, it needs site plan approval. But you probably don't want it if they build a 20 square foot shed, right? So I'm just throwing in here, I put in, and again, I just put it in, I need feedback from you or the town board. Above a certain size, a permanent farm building might need site plan approval. I threw in 500 square feet.
Wouldn't it be just if they need a building permit? Because in theory, they're building something?
Well, the question is, do you want site plan approval? If somebody builds a farm stand, and I know there's not many on Shelter Island other than frankly Sylvester Manor. But
there's quite a few.
Would you want site plan review for a farm stand, permanent farm stand, and if so, above a certain size?
No.
Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't.
I think it varies because the reality is if it depends on what, it's not even a size necessary. It's like who they are, where they're located, because it could cause a large increase in traffic. There's all sorts of reasons where it's located.
Objective criteria for that. You can't say, well, we think you're going to have greater traffic problems, so you need site plan.
No, I understand. So it seems to me it's like you can go one way or the other. You either go where basically everybody has to come in so you can then cull them out in the preliminary, right? Or you put an arbitrary size, which I don't know if that directly ties. What I'm saying is that I don't know if the square footage size will correlate 100% with whether a site plan is warranted.
You could say, unless if it's on Ferry Road, it's got a different size, I suppose.
Where did you get the 500 square feet?
He made that one up.
I just curious. You're going to tell me, or the town board's going to tell me whether you want this, and if so, what size. So I'm just throwing a number there.
I think I can think of 2 farm stands actually, which have parking lots.
Yeah, exactly.
There are a lot more farm stands, but you park along the road and you run and get your thing. So I think once it's to the size where you need a parking lot, whether it's Al Kilb or, it's probably appropriate to do some kind of review.
Okay, but again, that's.
I don't know, 500 feet, that seems.
That's kind of arbitrary, like how would we decide?
So to me, because we have, once we get past page 1, we have like a preliminary, we have like very early quick site review where we could decide it's administrative, or we could just say it's not needed. So again, I think this needs to be more broader so that we can go, oh, that actually doesn't need one, because basically it's.
Well, that's not actually the way the draft was working. I'm going to come to the minor site plan. That's ahead of us.
It's changed then from what it was.
I don't use the term administrative site plan, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
So then, business and restricted business zoning.
Wait, before I thought I had, and this came out of prior discussions, and some of you will think it's a terrible idea, and it may be that you're not allowed to do this. But is there a threshold for single-family residential which we can say would?
We're asked not to do that. We're supposed, this is for.
Directed by the town board.
Wait, let's have one person.
So I remember when that came up, that we were asked to do this for commercial usage. It's not supposed to be for residential. I put that in an email to you guys at one point, I think, right?
Yes. So remember that what I'm doing in 109-3 applicability, I'm saying what needs site plan review. Single family residential is not in here.
Yeah.
So it's not regulated. whether it's in a residential zoning district or, as you see, even if it's a business zoning district.
Because we have those.
I'm not,
The town board was
Lots of
specific
objections.
about, the town board was specific about that, so
if you're in a business or restricted zoning district, okay, any, B1 basically is, you can see it's for the erection, new construction, or moving or enlargement of a building or structure. Now, remember, there's gonna be exceptions coming below a certain size, we'll look at that. But it says in the second sentence here, this is even in the business zoning district, the second sentence in B1 says, this provision shall not apply to one-family or two-family dwellings or accessory to those dwellings, even if they're in a business district.
So I had a question about that. What if there's a business in this one or two family business? If they say a home business that has an actual business?
Well, if it's a
Which
home
happens.
occupation under your code, I'm assuming that it's a residence first with the home occupation.
Yeah.
If it's a business, that is what was formerly a residence, is now a business building.
Okay, that's why I was wondering what determines that. Is that basically they have a business license? Is that what, I mean, how do we separate? Because it's a two-family house and there's a family living there, but they have like a bottom entryway where they actually have I don't know, some kind of business. I don't know what it is. It's like woodworking and they come and it's like, it's actual business.
I would assume that's a business use then, even though there's a residential use associated with it.
That's why I'm just trying to understand, and I'm sorry, I don't understand it, because this kind of explicitly does a broader, like, one or two family dwellings don't apply.
Well, one or two family dwelling is a building that is a one or two family dwelling, period.
Period, without it, doesn't, okay, cool.
It's not a business,
By definition.
it's not a one family.
That answers my question. Thank you. That gets it.
So let me just go, so a chain now, two, I don't need it. Yeah, it's grayscale on your thing. I'm on 10, I know, 109 to X3.
I already got two.
Got a color copy if you want.
I know, I can resend this by email. So if it's a special permit use.
I'm sorry, Rick, yes, Jessica.
You can be.
Yeah, I gave her a color, I mean, if you color copy.
Okay.
Two-sided. That would make it easier for you. Except, of course, for Sean and Greg, who's don't have it.
Well, yeah. Well, you can email it.
Yeah. So, two is if you're changing from one kind of permitted or special permit use to another use, and that would increase your site parking requirements,
Yes, that's,
you might want site plan rule for that. I also put in, but I'm not at all saying you should do this, but I borrowed it from the East Hampton Town Code. If it required approval of the wastewater disposal system from the health department. I'm not personally sure why that would require site plan approval. You get health department approval.
right.
You know, it's health department. So the second part of that, I don't think you probably should.
Right.
But anyway, I just.
Is it only increase in parking? Would you worry about it all decrease in parking?
Well, remember, if you're increasing the size of the building, it's gonna be covered elsewhere.
Yeah.
Got
It
it.
could be under one.
I think it should say that it increases the size of the required parking lot. Or increases the car, because it may be
It's
that,
like parking requirements, that's the same.
but it may be that they already meet the requirement for a larger capacity.
That is a good point. That's a good point. Probably doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
Most people don't overbuild their parking lot, but that's a valid point. So you can keep it in mind. Because that is really what you're trying to get at. You're right. If their parking lot is so big, then even though the change of use would increase their parking requirements, but they already meet them with their existing parking lot, there's nothing to review.
Right.
So I agree.
You can word that however.
Yep, I can change that. Yeah. Any use of land requiring a special permit, a new special permit use?
Isn't that redundant? Oh, because
Whether there's a structure or not.
That's right, that's what that's trying to cover, if it's not a structure.
Right.
Somebody established, I mean, I don't know what this is under your code, but if there's a particular use that doesn't involve a structure or a new structure, I don't know, you change your single-family residence to a new use where you don't increase the building size, but the new use requires a special permit, maybe you want to look at it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like in the residential, that's the first thing you talk about, a special permit, and here it's the third thing. I'm wondering if you want to make it more consistent. That's why I kind of got confused. Oh, now we're talking about special
I
permits.
think you generally want to start at the top with things that make buildings bigger, because that's the most common trigger for site plan review. That's why B1 is moving construction, enlargement of the building structure. 4, now, again, this is sort of like 2 in a little ways. An activity or change in the land use that would increase the occupancy limits of the building or increase the site parking requirements. It could be somewhat redundant for 2. You'll see below that I'm going to treat small additions as minor site plans. Let me look.
Minor site plan is the word you're using instead of administrative site plan. Okay, why don't we like administrative site plan?
I didn't like anything about the way the purpose behind the administrative site plan, as I understood, and I'm jumping ahead here, was that it was intended to make things simpler and faster, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's how they did it. First, they required that all site plans start with a preliminary site plan. Why? Why do I have to submit a preliminary site plan even if it's something simple? So first you have to submit, it's mandatory under the draft, to submit a preliminary site plan. I did away with that. I make it discretionary on the landowner. Second, when you submit the administrative site plan, the board then has to determine if it's complete. Only after you determine it's complete, you send it to a committee, which is going to meet outside the normal process, which then has to bring it back to the board. And then the board can make a decision. Then you have to write a resolution. That's potentially at least 4 different planning board meetings. That doesn't expedite anything. So I'm jumping ahead, but the way I did it, and I told it simply a minor site plan, shorter term. You don't have to submit it. If you want to build a shed on the back, whatever, you need something that needs something that's simple. You don't need a preliminary review with the planning board. It's a waste of time. So just submit your application. If it's below certain thresholds, the planning board can say it's below certain thresholds, which means, first of all, in most cases, it will be a type 2 action under SEQRA, won't be subject to SEQRA. And you know what should you do then? You don't have to have a public hearing. But you'll see, if it meets certain standards.
Because you were on the committee.
What happened to the before even the preliminary, before that, there was the first meeting that determines whether it should be administrative or this. So that the whole idea was that you could quickly bypass things. And in there, it especially stated that you could decide some things are not required. And that's where I thought it would take away, like, you don't need to do all this stuff.
So that part of it, you have the ability to waive certain site plan elements.
Yes.
And in fact, let me progress with it, and we'll get to that. So in any event, under B5, we're coming back to clearing and grading. Do you want to review clearing and grading? If so, above what limits?
So this paragraph could be identical to the residential paragraph ultimately.
Remove it, yes.
It's similar, but remember, you're in a business district now.
So we may have different thresholds.
May have different criteria.
What? Complexity, okay.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry. Matt has a question. Go, ask the question.
My question is, and this is all good work and everything, but what is the purpose of this discussion? What do we hope to achieve by the end of going through this document?
Update this draft.
First of all, try to tell you what it covers, how it's structured, and then to get feedback from you on certain things that I don't know, that the town has to make a decision.
Okay, you've gotten some feedback from us, but we didn't determine what we're going to do about land clearing, whether it's percentage or something else like that. So we're going through this thing and people are bringing up problems that we have right now, but I don't see what we're accomplishing other than going through this document, but with no mandate as to where we're supposed to be when we get to the last page. See what I mean?
No, so we're updating this draft right now verbally. It's on record. So if Rick needs to go back, he can watch the YouTube video once on recording. I'm assuming, I'm taking some notes. I'm assuming Rick is. We have to update this draft. This draft is going to go back to the town board.
I understand.
And then our part's done.
Okay, but I don't see any updating going on. I see a little bit of explanation going on, but I don't hear any updating.
We're very slow moving through this.
That's what I'm trying to move us along here. Let me hit the things that I needed I want to give you.
But I just want
Let's be-
to answer your question, though, it's the draft has to be updated.
Right.
Okay.
So
This is a
are we gonna have, so this is the first draft. Are we gonna have an opportunity to make notes into a draft in SharePoint? Or how
that's what I'm asking.
how are we actually going to get our thoughts expressed into the draft?
This is, I'm assuming this is going to be dropped into SharePoint and we're going to put these in here.
See, I don't know how the town board fits in, other than, of course, the town board has to adopt it.
But we update it and give it to them when we're good with it.
They
That's my
want some sort of draft coming back to them. It doesn't have to
They want your
be,
input
it
first.
doesn't have to be perfect, but we need to have input to them,
So I would suggest then the things I'm raising questions on, you give me your ideas on whether you have another meeting or not, and then we put that in. And
I think
follow back to
if
the town.
okay, so if we put this in SharePoint, then we can, when we're writing our stuff down here, because you're not going to remember or be able to write down every single thing we talk about. And I sure don't want you to have to go back and watch the video.
Well, and like you said, we want to think about it a little bit.
If we could put our notes in SharePoint, then there's something being accomplished. Otherwise, right now, all we're doing is shooting shit about it.
Well, one other thing, David Kriegel took notes. I printed those notes for myself. I have that file. I don't know, I may not have distributed it to everybody. I think you sent it just to me. But I can drop that in SharePoint too.
You could, yeah, I mean.
I do, his comments are done.
All
I have
right,
your
I would
comments.
just didn't want to sit here till
Yeah,
whenever
I know, that's why.
and not accomplish anything.
Let me just go through the structure of it and tell you what I wanted to put in, and then you can move to, do that in your spare time. 109-4A, the planning board is being given the authority to grant site plan approvals under this, right? Right now with the town board, so the significance of 109-4A, the power of site plan review is going to the planning board, which is what I understand the town wants to do.
That's correct.
I had a question about C before you even get there, but we can discuss it later.
See about that?
Yeah, I mean, it basically gives the planning board the right to almost say anything requires site plan review. That's a total, I mean, residential or not, according to that paragraph, if we do a wetlands review, we could say, oh, this needs a site
Or
plan review.
subdivision. We were talking about
Subdivision.
subdivision earlier today. If you were to approve Crescent Beach, for example, and you said, gee, lot one is gonna be problematical, we think there should be site plan review when you would have discretion under 109-3C to
Yeah.
require site plan as a condition of approval of subdivision.
I mean, this little sentence is the most potent sentence in the whole document.
How often you're gonna do it, but it does give a reviewing board, it could be the zoning board as well, it does give that board power to require a site plan review down the road.
Regardless of all the other criteria.
Right.
Even though we
You
can't do,
can't have
even
that-
though we can't do residential, we can do
Yes.
residential.
Well, you could do it in residential,
If it
if
was,
it's subject to some other permit. It's not the kind of thing I would expect you would use very often, but it gives you one more tool. Okay, 109-4, again, the most important thing there is the planning board is gonna be the review agency. 109-5, things, that's very brief now, because I have the way I worded it, but 109-5A, ordinary repair and maintenance is not gonna be covered by site. Make that clear. And 109-4B, certain things involving replacement fuel tanks and hazardous materials facilities that require Suffolk County Health Department approval, even if they might otherwise be triggered, they don't require site plan approval. 109-6, basically existing structures and uses that don't change, don't require site plan. 109-7, now this part of it is important. This is the way I did it.
Wait,
can I go back to 109 for C, certificates of occupancy?
Yeah.
You talk a lot about the town board through this. Is that the way it?
Here's the important part about this, and I deal with it later on. When you complete it with a site plan, you should get a C of O, certificate of occupancy, all right? Sometimes there might be a condition of the site plan approval, and I'll give you a couple examples, because this comes up sometimes. Landscaping or paving the parking lot. Well, you get your building permit in October, and you do the work, and by the time you get around to finishing up, it's January. You can't put the landscaping in, you can't pave the parking lot, but you'd like to occupy the building and get a C of O. So this would allow you to post security with the town board so that you could open, even if you didn't finish things because due to the season, you couldn't do them.
I see. So this is not complying, basically you're not complying to the site plan, but this gives you an out.
Yeah, you haven't fully complied yet.
Understood.
Once it's secure.
Thank you.
If you don't do the work within the time given, then your CFO offense for the
Understood.
There's no TCO on Shelter Island, as I remember. Temporary certificate of occupancy.
Not in your code, no.
No.
This is sort of what this would.
Kind of what it is.
Right. It's about.
Yeah, we don't have one.
So the site plan procedures, preliminary site plan, this is what you guys had before, you were making it mandatory. Some site plans are too simple for that. A lot of them are going to be too simple for that. So what I say here in the middle is, it says, it explains why you would do it, but it says the submittal of a preliminary site plan is discretionary with the applicant. If the applicant wants to go directly to site plan review, let him do it. That's what A says.
So this gets rid of the old, like, early conference?
It's not mandatory, that's right.
So in other words, somebody can just show up.
Even if they show up, they certainly still have to submit certain things. See
There.
109A1, the way this draft was written, they can just show up. They don't even have to come up with a site plan.
I understand because it was to have a conversation, but so it has to, they do have to, even if you're saying they do still have to do all this stuff in subsection B herein.
Right, now I took B from the draft that you guys had in July. All out of that draft with very few changes by me. You'll see in B, right in that first paragraph, it says, these are the site plan elements unless one or more of these elements are waived by the planning board upon request of the applicant and for good cause shown. So
Okay, how do you know what to waive or not waive if they haven't done anything and they can't have met with us?
They're going to submit a site plan, and if they don't include certain things, instead of you telling them they're going to come in, they'll say to you, I didn't give you this and that. Will you waive that? And here's why. If you say no, then they have to go back and submit it.
So
You're going to still discuss their application.
So we're not going to do a review to make sure things are complete. We'll be doing.
Well, you will, but as part of that completeness review, if the applicant hasn't submitted certain required elements and they don't want to, and they have a good reason for it, they can tell you that and you can waive that requirement.
So this sounds like the actual site plan application has to have this is what you need to do, or please explain why you did.
Right, the site plan is your seat, there's a long list.
Yeah. And
Okay, you want to cover everything you might reasonably need. But is that overkill sometimes? Sure.
yeah.
And so you want to give the board some discretion to say, okay,
Yeah.
you don't need this.
So this no longer has the kind of workflow that the other ones had, like it goes to the town clerk and then to the building inspector who then.
Well, I don't think in this draft, well, it was going to town. The way I have it worded here, and we're coming to that, it would go to the building inspector. Let me just jump ahead. So
Okay.
in 109.7, which is this procedure, you can see A is preliminary site plan, that is discretionary. If they don't want to go through preliminary site plan, they want to go straight to site plan, they can do that. Then in the next couple pages, the next 3 pages, most of the next 3 pages are the elements of site plan, which you have the power to consider later. Go now to C, formal site plan procedure. See that? That's on, I don't know what page we're on. It's 6 or
Okay,
7.
so those are the two different ones now. Is the preliminary or a formal?
Backside of the page. The way I've structured this, and again, I highlighted it, you have to highlight it now, so I need feedback on this. My recommendation would be route it through the building inspector. The building inspector can do an initial review. Does it meet zoning? Does it meet the state building code if it involves a building, right? Once the building inspector says, he has 21 days, not 20 days, because we don't work on weeks or anything. You don't make it 20, do it on 21, divided by 7. Once the building inspector certifies that the site plan facially is complete, seems to meet zoning, meets the setbacks, complies with the building code as far as he can determine, then he forwards it to you, and then you can start your review. So it would be routed through the building inspector. That way also the building inspector knows there's a site plan application pending, which if it doesn't go through him, he doesn't know.
So we can get through, we could do a preliminary, and a preliminary is purely advisory.
That's right.
So they still, no matter what, have to go through a formal.
They have to submit a formal, and what this now will say from C Going forward, B, E, F, you go to public hearing at F, but then skip ahead to the next section, which is the next page, 109-8.
Oh, that's minor.
Minor site plans. Notwithstanding the provisions in the preceding 109-7, in your sole discretion, you can waive a public hearing, which means you could basically, on a minor site plan, you could review it one night, and if it meets the criteria and you agree, we'll talk about that in a moment, you could say, yeah, it looks like a minor site plan. Do a resolution in the next meeting. You don't have a public hearing. It's probably type 2 action under secret. You could theoretically approve it in 2 meetings. You review it once, agree, it's simple enough, you could agree to approve it, and then you have a resolution as soon as your next meeting. That's minor site plan. And so the criteria for minor site plan, I'm jumping to that, and I've highlighted in yellow some of the things I need input from. Do you want to have certain parameters for lot coverage, building area, floor area, or some, but not all of those? In other words, is it below a certain level? Now, you'll see 109-8A. It has to be an addition or a change to a prior site plan. So a completely new building, the way I've worded this, completely new, the building never been built before. I'm not making that eligible for minor site plan. You can if you want to, but that's not the way it's worded right now. I also say in E, it has to conform to the chapter, meaning it could not need variances. Again, you could have minor site plan even for something that didn't need variance. You got to go to the zoning board, but that's not the way I've drafted it right now. And then there are some criteria, and that's G. If you know the face page, in waiving a public hearing, which is to say approving a minor site plan, you have to look at certain things, the size of the property, the proximity of the property to wetlands or other natural features, potential disturbance to nearby properties, especially residential properties, compatibility with surrounding development or the town comprehensive plan. So you have some standards that you would look at, and if it meets the standards and it's within the threshold, you can waive a public hearing. Notice the last section there, the last criterion, H, public controversy. Now, it's a brand new application, probably won't be, but you guys have a feel for the town. You probably only want to do this if it's something that's not causing significant, or you don't believe will cause significant, public controversy.
If there's no public hearing,
How do you know?
how will the public know?
Correct, that's kind of an issue.
Are all submissions on a public record on the website?
Sure. It'd be there, so you'd be on your agenda, and the agenda shows the application.
Yeah.
And then there's also, so it will be public.
It'll be public now that people won't have a long time.
Yeah, it's
in the
okay.
process.
It doesn't take long if they're going to be loud.
Right.
That's my discovery.
That's basically how it, so in other words, it's a formal site plan application that goes through the procedure and requires a public hearing. But if you meet certain parameters, that's 109-8, you can treat something that's a minor site plan. And that minor site plan basically means you don't have to have a public hearing.
And you would do that basically at the first, they would submit everything, and then you'd have an initial meeting, initial planning board review is probably when it would happen?
That's on 109.7, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably when you might go, it's,
Probably, yeah.
I'm trying to figure out when it would
If it's
happen.
simple enough, if it's simple enough, my assumption is that you guys will figure it out pretty soon. If it's simple enough, you'll know whether a minor site plan is eligible. Again, there are objective criteria such as size. And if it meets the size criteria, you look at, this doesn't seem problematic. Well, yeah, minor site plan. You have the power to waive the public hearing, which automatically saves the applicant about 2 months.
Yeah.
So 109-9 is standards.
Yep.
There are standards for you. Every permit or approval you give should have a set of standards. You can see physical compatibility, protecting residential areas, parking, access, lighting. I do want you, again, you don't have to tell me tonight, but if you want to go to lights under 109-9E, I borrowed a lot of this from the East Hampton Town Code. Do you want lighting specifications and some basic rules.
Well, the way most agencies that we work with, when you're doing exterior lighting, it says has to be darksky.org
Well,
compatible.
you have to explain what that means.
We have.
Well, you give
we
them the
have-
link and
We have,
standards.
we have it in our code, lighting code. There's lighting code separately, so you should refer to that.
A separate chapter of the code?
I believe so. Yeah, I'm almost positive. That's why we didn't include it, I think, in our draft, because there's a whole.
But if it's going through the site plan, you know, you have to incorporate it.
I have a quick backup, just to make sure I get the flow right. I see in the site plan, the preliminary site plan, which I would recommend we call an advisory site plan. It has then the criteria that you say you do all this stuff, one, or B, 1, 2, 3, 4, but all the way down through 4 with all A through L. I would assume all those are part of also a formal site plan.
Where is it, David? You're talking about the required site?
The required site plan elements, it's written as if it's only part of this.
No. Preliminary site plan is just subsection A. Everything is under 1097, site plan procedure. So site plan application procedure, subsection A only applies to preliminary site plan, or if you want to rename it advisory site plan, that's only subsection A. Subsection B is simply required site elements for the site.
Yeah, for some reason, because that came before the formal site plan, I kind of thought it was part of.
Yeah, I can.
That was my only thought. I got a little confused.
Yeah,
It's so great.
I understand that.
I wanted to make sure that does apply to all. Okay, cool.
Well, when you do your, what do you call it again, the
Fair point.
SharePoint, you make that comment.
Yeah.
Make sure you move down.
Yeah, cool.
I think that, I mean, this is a tricky section, standards, and I think either you flesh it out and you say screening shall be blah, blah, tree, 3 inches of, whatever. Or you just say it's up to our review.
Which part are you on?
The whole concept of standards, because this doesn't really list standards specifically. I mean, to say it has to be physically compatible. According to who? Right. But if I'm on the other side and I'm submitting an application, how do I know what they mean by physically
So
compatible?
there are requirements, for example, whether or not you are a minor site plan or something else, there should be, in my opinion, objective criteria.
Right.
Okay, not, but when it comes to an actual decision to make an approval, those standards are necessarily discretionary. You have to use your judgment. So standards are written in that sense. There's gray area to them. That requires upon the good judgment of the planning board.
Well, we've done that all along with South Ferry and the library and.
What you want is
But East Hampton is much more kind of
That's why we have.
No.
Agreed about
Some of
that.
these standards are taken from East Hampton.
It's-
They're mixed of what was in your draft and East Hampton. But East Hampton doesn't, the planning board uses its brain. You gotta, you have maneuvering room and you have to operate within that maneuvering.
You can't expect us to use our brains.
It can't be a simple equation.
Yeah.
Well, it can for some things. I mean, but you're saying, well, it's not structural design. You can't, it's not the load times the blah, blah, blah. But for something like screening, it is. You can either see through it or you can't.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can screen things.
All right, well, maybe that's not a good example. But the idea of contextual design
Well, for example,
is a little subjective.
where we have screen here.
Julia,
Yeah, it's good.
I'm going to have to excuse myself and
Okay.
sign off for the evening.
Okay.
Sorry, I have a 5 o'clock departure in the morning.
Yes, it's the.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
have a
thank
good
you-
trip.
Thank you very much.
You should have stopped an hour ago.
Don't worry, it'll be delayed 3 hours anyway, so.
The only other thing I want to mention here on the very last paragraph of the whole document,
Yeah.
penalties. I checked with my partner, the town justice. And you'll see I changed the blue there.
Let me see what you can change.
If something is subject to potential term of imprisonment for more than 15 days, it's treated as a misdemeanor, which is very problematic. And people can't,
Yeah, when I read
on the
it,
record if they plead to it. So we kept the potential, it's a good idea to have an imprisonment thing, even though nobody ever goes it's a GL, these things.
Yeah, I wrote down, this seems excessive on your previous one, which was 6
Yeah.
months.
It was
Excessive-
excessive.
I said excessive on imprisonment and de minimis on dollars. We should charge more dollars.
You're probably right. But anyway, the second thing
I used de minimis, I was really proud.
15 days or less,
Yeah,
only an offense or violation, it's not a misdemeanor.
but I think we should charge more.
Significantly more, in my opinion.
Probably right. $1,000 is nothing these days.
Well, that's the point. If it, if it,
Let's raise it.
yeah. I think 10,000 sounds good.
I have to check the town law too. I don't know if there's, I have to see if the town law.
There, look at that cool
You
mill.
know, for somebody who's spending $15 million on something,
But at least then we make some money.
And-
500 is nothing.
Well,
Every
and-
week's, I think it's every week, right? I put it there. Every week's continuing violation, I think it's every week.
Yes, it's every week.
It is a separate violation.
I know. I know.
10 grand a week will get them to fix it real quick.
Well,
Well, but that's, yeah, so I mean, personally, I'd suggest a larger starting one and then, potentially being descriptive in something like, if you fail to comply with a cease and desist order, it's a per day on top of what the original fine was.
Yeah, I would say.
you just gotta check and see if there's other law out there that
Yep,
limits
yep,
the
yep.
ability to do that.
Yep. Okay.
okay.
I like advisories. Should put that out.
So Julia,
Yes.
are we trying to wrap up here?
Well, we are, but I don't think we're going to be able to because, like, in
No,
terms
I
of
mean, just
having
for
this
the night.
draft.
I mean, just for the night.
Yes, yes. Just,
So I
all of
just
that.
wanted to make or question to make sure we're all on the same page. And so if as I understand it, I think before we spend any much time editing or commenting on this, it would be good to have some direction from the town board of whether they're receptive or interested in addressing clearing, in particular.
If we wait till January, it'll be a different answer.
Well,
So it's like,
I think we should just put forth some draft.
my point is that if I'm understanding that we're really not supposed to address anything that's strictly residential, like I think it is 10932 that says if it's in as part of a building a 1 or 2 story home or something, I think that's saying it's out of scope. It has nothing to do with us.
Right.
absolutely. Right.
So to be honest with you, then this is a waste of time because what are we going to do? We're going to stop somebody from, and believe me, I'm a tree hugger. We're going to stop somebody from clearing according to this, right? But the building department currently has no power, to my knowledge, to stop clearing. So somebody can say, here's my plan to build a house, and they're clearing it at that point, and the building department has no powers to stop them.
That's a different code. It's different code.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
I understand that, but I think we need to understand then, so we're not really stopping it, we're temporarily stopping it, and is that a reasonable?
We're affecting commercial.
Sean, are you talking about on residential property or in commercial property?
Because we're doing
On
commercial.
residential. No, I understand. I mean,
So residential, there'd be no limitation on clearing and no.
Yeah.
And that's going
On
to,
commercial, if they're subject to site plan review, this says they cannot commence clearing and grading until they have site plan.
yeah, and that's
But I don't
fine.
think it's a
such
waste of time. I don't think it's
well,
a
I
waste
mean,
of time.
I get it. If it's a very small portion of the real issue, like what he was talking about, I hear you, it's still value to it. But I think what Greg was talking about, for example, that's a residential lot probably across from him, which has nothing to do with it.
it has nothing to do with this. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So arguably that lot is being used for commercial purposes. So that's,
I don't know, maybe, but I think that.
I know who owns it and I know whose stuff is sitting on it.
Yeah.
So
We just
it's
have-
being used for commercial purposes.
Yeah. Okay.
That goes back to code enforcement.
So the only thing, just quickly, I just want to say, did everyone look at the tentative
Yeah, I just
meeting
did.
dates? And I mean, I'm not going anywhere. So
You moved a couple, I noticed, at the end of the year from what was previously, or what's the normal date, but they seem fine to me.
I think it had to do with availability and other meetings.
I figured it was.
So is
It's
that
all good.
okay? Or
I'm all good.
you guys are good with that?
Checked it this morning. or-
Okay.
Right now.
So I'm going to make a motion that we
I second
adjourn
it.
the meeting.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Agreed, yes.
Thank you.
Question?